The views and opinions expressed by tonight's guest and topic of discussion do not necessarily represent the official policy or position of Spaced Out Radio, Spaced Out Saturdays or Sundays, SOR Media, its hosts, syndicated carriers, or anyone associated with this broadcast. Any rebroadcast, reproduction, or other use of this broadcast or podcast without the expressed written consent of SOR Media is strictly prohibited. Listener discretion is advised. Are you experienced? Then come own the night with us.
Little brother has taken control, shoveling dirt in every hole. Predators to condemn your soul, watching you and watching me. We're all
stationed atop the mountains of British Columbia, live from SOR headquarters. This is Spaced Out Radio with host Dave Scott.
We live behind glass curtains and act like nothing's wrong. Soon you will belong.
You can follow us on our website, spacedoutradio.com, and on Spaced Out Radio on iTunes. You can follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, and on Instagram at Dave Scott SOR, on Facebook at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio.
Brother wants to make headlines, be immortalized. Everyone's got an electric eye with the digital spies. They've watched you for so long. I know you're out there somewhere watching me.
Buckle up, space travelers. It's time to go for a ride on Spaced Out Radio with host Dave Scott.
I know you're out there somewhere. We've watched you for so long. Wait for you to fall. We'll expose you all. I know you're out there somewhere watching me. Little brother wants to make headlines, be immortalized.
It's Friday, August 31st, Saturday, September 1st, if you're on the East Coast or across the pond. And this, my friends, is Spaced Out Radio. Hope you had a great day and night. I am your host, Dave Scott, broadcasting to you live from the Great White North, on top of the mountains of central British Columbia, right here at SOR headquarters. We are 150,000 strong nightly on the SOR Radio Network and Deep Talk Radio, and we say thank you to each and every one of you for tuning us in wherever you are. Our archives are on YouTube. They are free. Go to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Just do me a favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you. You can rock out to Bumblefoot, shop at our store, read up on the encounter online, and so much more. Tonight's show is brought to you by the YouTube channel Ensuho. Sebastian Martin bringing high-quality messages to the masses. Go to spacedoutradio.com, click on the Ensuho banner, and subscribe today. And don't forget, you can now go to questers.ca. That's questers.ca. Click on the fall conference and get your tickets right now for the first annual Caribou Paracon, presented by Spaced Out Radio and the Canadian Society of Questers. We get going in 1 month. That's the September 28th through 30th weekend. I would love to see you here. Go to questers.ca to see the great lineup we have for you. It's the final Friday and the final day of the month of August. And man, has 2018 ever flown by, hasn't it? This time, I swear, it's just speeding up. Don't you think this time thing is speeding up? But time always flies when you're having fun, and we are definitely going to have some fun tonight. As you know, the final Friday of the month means it's time to hang out with some friends and debate and discuss the paranormal month that was. So tonight, on the SOR Paranormal Roundtable, we have Tessa Nicole Thomas from the weekend show here on Spaced Out Radio. Chris George Zuger is with us from the Den of Lore and SOR's Reality Paranormal. We also got Michael W. Hall, otherwise known as the Paranormal Lawyer from Washington State's UFO team. And we may have a special guest coming up very, very soon. We're just trying to get a hold of. We've been having a little bit of Skype issue tonight. I don't know what it is, but for some reason, Skype is causing a little bit of havoc. I'm going to blame Microsoft for this because, ever since Microsoft took over Skype, it just seems to be a pain in the ass on trying to connect with people. So we are waiting for Rich Giordano from the Paranormal Code and Goof On. Just cannot connect with him. It's showing that he's there, but we just cannot connect. So anyways, if you haven't heard the roundtable before, our guests literally come in blind. They don't know the topics we're going to discuss, so we're going to make sure that they work their minds a little bit over the next couple of hours on the show. And because it is a roundtable night, we will not have our news section at the bottom of hour number 3. We've given Everett Themer the night off, so that way he can go play with his chainsaw in the dark, because that's always fun. So we bring in our roundtable panel: Michael W. Hall, Tessa Nicole Thomas, Chris Zuger from the Den of Lore. Everybody, welcome to tonight's show.
Hello.
Hello, happy to be David.
Here. It's always great to have such quality people such as yourselves on here. We're going to get things going right off the bat here, guys, because we got a lot of topics that we got to cover over the next 3 hours. And boy, we got some interesting opinions I know we're going to hear. We're going to have some fun, some debate, some banter, and see where it goes from there. So we're going to kick things off right off the bat. And, one of these topics, and every now and again, I get this topic on my mind, everyone, that I just cannot get out. And the topic that keeps bugging me this month is the fact of different dimensions and potential portals. Now, Chris Zuger, we talked about this with Chris Cogswell on Reality Paranormal about people just disappearing. And the easy answer to say is that people are just being kidnapped, they're being hidden, there's a lot of bad in this world where people are trying to hurt other people and maybe steal other people for horrific things, and I don't even want to get into those. But nonetheless, there is a bunch of the population who believes that people just up and out disappear. Maybe they're taken by aliens. Maybe they are literally walking into a portal into a different dimension and they don't even know they've done it. So I realize it's a real tinfoil subject, Chris, but when you think of different dimensions and portals, do you think they're real? And do you think some of these missing people are literally walking off out of our existence?
Well, it's definitely possible. And I'm not sure if I'm getting echo on your side. It just comes down to the lack of likelihood for it actually happening. Scientifically, there's no real basis for it, but hey, stranger things have happened.
Just so you know, we're not getting any echo from you on this end. I don't know why you're getting it there, but we're not getting any info. Tess, I want to bring you in on this because you are a paranormal investigator outside of hosting the weekend show. And there are people who just disappear. And I'm sure it's happened in your area. It's happened in my area. What do you think's going on? Do you think these people are, we can't take away, I guess I should say this, we can't take away the fact that there are people being kidnapped and potentially raped, tortured, or whatever it may be. But do you think that there are people out there who are just walking into a different portal?
I think it's possible. I'm thinking abductions, and sometimes there's cases to do with the paranormal where there's a demonic entity or something else that takes hold There was a family of 3, a mother, a father, and a little baby girl, and they were all found face down in the dirt with no logical explanation, and they had paranormal issues at the home beforehand. So it could be something like that, or maybe even walking off a cliff where nobody finds you for a couple years. But I mean, anything is possible, and I believe there are a lot of portals, especially these days. There seems to be much more than before.
Michael W. Hall, what's your thoughts on that?
Well, I'm jumping right on the idea that all of these Stargate television shows that you see, things about the Stargates, that have been very popular over the last decade or so, almost seems to be preparing us for something like this that is going to be found or discovered very soon. And you wonder why they're using the same kind of thing where you walk through a portal, whether you're a black ops organization or military, group, or just individuals, and all of a sudden you find yourself in a different dimension or a different time. There is, believe it or not, there is a local attorney here in our state of Washington. His name is Andrew Basaggio, and he claims that he has gone through jump rooms to various places around the country and even back in time. So it's a fascinating subject to me. And if a fellow member of the bar who is actually still a practicing attorney is out there and making the run around the talk shows saying these kinds of things, you wonder about what the heck is going on.
No, I fully agree with that. And there's so many people every year who go missing where literally, they are hanging out, and, maybe 1 minute they're hanging out with their buddies at the bar. And the next thing you know, they are gone without a trace. And they could be sitting in that bar. You could be walking up to your vehicle. How many times do you hear these stories of people who are go around around a corner and say, I gotta break the seal or go to the bathroom here. They run behind a garbage can or a tree or something, and they're only 20, 30 feet from their friends. And poof, they're gone. Poof. Disappeared. Like, I don't know where the heck they are. Right? I don't know.
Yeah.
This is a lot of time.
This is what bothers me.
They have that missing time, but sometimes it doesn't work that way, and they actually retain the memories. But they're supposed to pick them up and deposit them back from where they took them from. And there's also that agreement where they take so many and we take so many of theirs, and we're supposed to be, informed of who they're taking and when exactly they come back, but they don't pertain to their side of the deal. So it's just all askew, and so nobody knows what's really happening.
Chris, do you think there is any conspiracy behind this?
I think it's a conspiracy to get more money, personally. A lot of the conspiratorial, interdimensional tales that are being told within media nowadays are this generation's, urban legends. And a lot of the times they're individuals who are profiting very well off of them. And is there a conspiracy? Conspiracies exist. It's how people have, gotten and retained power for thousands of years. But hiding interdimensional aliens or going back in time, I just don't see it.
Mm-hmm.
There's no evidence.
I'm just curious, too, because, you look at the state of Alaska, and Mikey in the chat room brings this up. There are more people that go missing in Alaska than any other state. And I realize Alaska has a lot of animals that can kill you. Okay, it's got extremely treacherous territory in certain areas. But there are people who are just literally feet away going missing. And I always wonder, and maybe it's my imagination, maybe it's everything else. I'm just wondering, is there any opportunity or chance, Michael, that these people don't even know that they're missing. That maybe they've walked into a different portal and they just poof, gone. They're looking for their buddy saying, hey, where did you all go? You were right there. And nothing has changed, but that person's just moved on to a different dimension.
You know, I have heard stories from credible people that said that, for instance, they were traveling in their car and they're driving along a country road or something like that. And all of a sudden they realize that they are not in modern day America that they thought they were, but they're in still their vehicle, but they're looking out the vehicle and seeing turn of the century or even earlier scenery go by. I've heard that same story from people that were in a train just rolling along the countryside, that kind of thing as well. So you kind of wonder whether we do this ourselves periodically and don't even realize it, you know, specifically with like the deja vu phenomena that all of us seem to kind of experience periodically. We almost know for sure we've been there before or someplace else before. And you wonder whether that is some kind of a portal or some kind of a dream memory. And potentially we go through portals in our sleep as well. Bring back different information and different kinds of ideas. You know, a lot of folks say they get downloads of information in their sleep that they never would have thought of before. So I think this is a fascinating subject.
Me too. And you know what? I think it's something that we do have to look at. I mean, as Chris Cogswell said on Reality Paranormal, science does believe that there are other dimensions. We just don't know how to access them. We don't have the science on this side in order to get there yet. And Zoogs, you remember him saying that. Are we hearing Chris? Like I said, we're having some Skype issues tonight. I don't know what's going on. Either way, we got to move on here. We'll move on. And hopefully we can get... I know Zuger was having some Skype troubles as well on his end, so we are trying to figure all this out here as we go along. There you are. How you doing, Zug?
I'm doing quite well. This is the first time I've used my studio in almost a month, and I had disassembled it to play a wedding. So,
Oh, so you're a wedding singer too?
I'm more of a wedding DJ.
Oh, so when you are you one of those wedding DJs that always makes it mandatory to play the Macarena and that brutal chicken song, the chicken dance song?
No, those are actually on my do not playlist.
Oh, thank God. Thank God. That's just terrible. I mean, you know, I remember there was this one DJ in this town I grew up in, Abbotsford, where, you know, he got all the gigs. But no matter what, there was always the Macarena and there was always that damn chicken song. Drove me nuts. Like, we got to move on, people. The chicken song is over. All right? The chicken song is over. By the way, we're getting some high-quality snark right off the bat here on Twitter at #SpacedOutRadio. You guys keep it up over there. You're doing a great job. I'm already laughing tonight, so thank you so much. Moving on to topic number 2, ladies and gentlemen. Earlier this month, I had a guest on, Professor Paul Kingsbury from the Simon Fraser University outside of Vancouver. And a couple of years ago, he was granted a 4-year residency and grant to study why people investigate the paranormal, UFOs, Bigfoot. And he went in very, very skeptically. And as he said on this show, the grant was for over 4 years at $184,000, probably the biggest public grant that we have heard going to a university professor. And other professors around not only North America and the world are very curious because next year when the grant runs out, he's got to write his report and write a book about it and come up with his findings. And there are a lot of professors around the world who are taking a look at this as a lot of intrigue. Now, we have seen a lot of academia really shoot down and poo-poo the paranormal field, calling us a bunch of wingnuts, calling us a bunch of people who are chasing things that do not exist. Yet, this is something that has created a lot of intrigue at the university level. So I'm just curious, Mike, as someone who has gone quite far in university with yourself, how big are you? Let me ask you this way: how important is a study like this to see that great amount of money going towards studying what's up and what's happening in the paranormal, not only in the field of research, but with the people who are involved as well?
That is a real interesting, the idea that a full college professor with tenure, by the way, I remember the interview that you had, and he mentioned that he doesn't have to worry about being fired or getting any kind of negative publicity to his university because he's been around for so long and has got the credibility in the scientific community what he needs. So he is still interested in the paranormal and the studying of people who are. And I am wondering whether that is something that is new and maybe groundbreaking for the idea that I believe there is probably things that are coming down the road in the future that the public needs to be red-pilled about as far as the paranormal goes. And maybe this study that is being sponsored, that they're going to find out how well the public will be able to respond and handle some of these paranormal issues on a wider scale. Sometimes the government or the Black Ops or any organization that is in charge of a certain area of governance, they want to find out in the future what's going to happen if, for instance, they're going to have to deal with disclosing truth of some kind in the future and how people will react to that. This was the entire idea behind the Brookings Institute report in the 60s, where the government, gave a grant to the Brookings Institute to find out what would people do if they found out that extraterrestrials existed, and or other civilizations are here on the planet as well. And they tried to figure out exactly how the people would react. And of course, back in the 60s, it was pretty disastrous. The conclusion that they said would happen if all of a sudden people got the news of disclosure.
I think it's important too, Chris, as we bring you in here on this, that this study, pending on the results that Paul comes out with, has the potential to unlock a lot of big money from people and government grants, private grants on wanting to study this. I mean, it's really, sure, there has been other paranormal studies in universities before, but nothing at this amount that we have at least heard of. Do you think this has the ability to really open up the doors for a lot of other universities to take the phenomena of the paranormal, if we use that as an umbrella term, and start studying it?
Well, the way that I had heard it is that he was studying why people believe in certain paranormal phenomena, which, it goes to show, at least trying to understand why things like, believing in deep state conspiracy or QAnon or, any number of things like disclosure, for instance. Why is it people that will clutch to these particular belief systems, usually surrounded by little to no evidence, or if there is evidence, it's either from the words of a whistleblower who's making money on the speaker circuit, or it's been flat out fabricated. And I'm interested to know from this standpoint exactly what this report's going to say, because Bigfoot is actually one of the more interesting and potentially true aspects of paranormal that, if we can actually open up that avenue, and if it's a slow step towards studying the phenomenon, not just on a societal level, but also on a actual organismic level, I'd say sure, I'm all for it. But if we're going to jump to conclusions as truth seekers to say it's going to blow open the doors to the Pentagon, and they're going to admit that aliens are real, or we've been visited since goodness knows how many thousands of years ago, I just don't see it happening, because the only people who are pushing that are the people who are kind of appearing on TV at the moment. You don't hear any government individuals.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I do not think that this is going to open up the door and pressure the government into answering what the hell are they hiding with aliens or Bigfoot or anything like that. And yes, the study is, about why people believe in this. But I think what it is this could open up a big door, Chris, for people in the university communities to say, look, maybe we haven't been giving parascience, if you want to call it that. It's just dessert, because there's not a lot of scientific people actually working in this field. However, if the report comes back that says, look, there is something going on here, we need to figure it out. And the more I talk to Paul, the more I'm starting to believe that he's starting to believe that there is some sort of phenomena that is happening and that people are having experiences and want to know what's going on. I think this could be a very healthy door opening. Do I think it'll help it happen quickly? No, but I think it could really open the door towards, say, the next decade of research, Chris.
Ellen, here's hoping.
Tessa, what's your thoughts on it?
Well, I'm not sure about this fellow you were talking about, Luke. I haven't heard anything about his stuff, but as far as aliens being out there, I'm sure they are. You were just talking the other day about underground or intermountain or even underwater bases, and there's so much evidence out there as far as people that know about it that exist, but those people are generally taken out. And I'm kind of trying to get back to the main point, because we've gone over so many different ones. What was the exact main point on that?
The fact that the study could open up doors for a lot of university studies and universities and private and public grants to open up for other chances of having these subjects studied.
Yeah, and that would be awesome, but then there's the scientific method of having this happen in a sterile environment where it happens repeatedly. It's hard to get the paranormal to happen repeatedly. It's always a different story and different factors that are in play that allow these things to happen. If he can get that going and get this evidence recorded, I mean, kudos to him, and that would be so awesome and epic for our field. I kind of just find it hard to believe that can happen in a scientific environment where it does have to happen repeatedly. But if he can do that, that'd be awesome, and I'd love to see that work, because the paranormal is out there, and we do need to delve deeper into it. There are things out there other than ourselves, and for them to finally acknowledge that and know that it is would help a lot of people that are going through this, who feel like they're going crazy or out of their minds. But yeah, indeed, that would be awesome.
Well, let's take a look at the other side of this for a second, okay? Because, Michael, there are a lot of investigators out there, probably a couple 100,000 in North America alone, if you include everything: Bigfoot, Dogman, UFOs, aliens, ghosts. Couple 100,000 people who are investigating this in North America. Yes, a study like this, if it comes back positive, depending on what the results are next year, it could give a lot of credibility to this field and what people are doing. But does that give the credibility to the local investigator who deals with hauntings? Because let's face it, there are so many different ways that people investigate. There are so many different ways and beliefs in the Bigfoot realm and UFO realm as to why things are happening. There is no rule books to this field as there is in scientific study. Is that going to make a difference, or do you think that it's just going to be status quo?
Oh, no, I don't think status quo is going to last very long in the current situation that's happening all around us. I mean, whether it's going to be disclosure this week, next week, or, years from now, it seems to me that the consciousness level of the entire planet is raising, specifically when you look at young people, in our country as well. These kids are light years ahead of, I believe, most of us at their age at this point. As a matter of fact, I was just noting also regarding this university study that we are talking about now, there are quite a lot of other, academic colleges and universities that are doing these things. For instance, Princeton University has a Princeton Engineering Anomalies Research Department. The University of Arizona has a Center for Consciousness Studies, as well as Duke University has paranormal programs as well. So it seems to be creeping into academia, and the fact that they are willing to give professors tenure, in this kind of a field for teaching these things. And I know we've all probably run across the local community college or even the 4-year institutions that have a UFO course or a class. They are one of the more popular, things that the students are going for. So I know that they are very interested in finding out what's going on. And I think that it's the status quo because of this study that we're talking about tonight is definitely going to give the local researchers out there some credibility, street cred, some, ability to finally get into ask questions that they might not have been able to ask before because people wouldn't take them very seriously. And I think this is a good step forward.
Chris, I'm going to give you the final word on this one. Do you think that with other universities waiting on this, do you think that a strong report by this could bring credibility for the couple 100,000 researchers that are currently, even investigating tonight, since it's a Friday night?
I would look at it from, potential validation of their work, and some people have been doing it for decades. At the same time, if it comes back negative, what does it say to the researchers whom have put their blood, sweat, and tears into trying to discover what the heck's going on out there? And, potentially being told that they may be crazy, or people think that they're crazy. And, this community has been stigmatized for an extremely long time because, there are individuals who do have, very scientific method to discovering and testing what is going on. There are other individuals who tend to play the soothsayer role, where they're just going to tell you exactly what you're going to want to hear. And, it may at least give an idea to the people who do have that scientific method down and that ability to research and show their findings in a credible way, that they need to continue on that positive path.
Right. We're going to move on here to the next topic tonight. Premonitions. Did a show last Friday with Lori Moon Boggs on premonitions and how she had a major premonition. Holy cow, I got a major... Oh, God, this thing's like 3 inches long. Daddy long legs on my wall right now.
Oh, wow.
And it just dropped on the floor. Oh, what do I do here?
Leave it. They eat mosquitoes.
I know.
Yeah.
I know.
They're good luck, but
I gotta put this thing outside. This is like, okay, where is it here? Hold on. I gotta.
That's what I do. I just give them a little ride and take them outside, and they can do their own.
Not about killing the spiders. My name's not Everett Themer here. I'm looking towards the ground. Okay, it's walking towards me. All right, we're about 10 inches apart here. Okay, I'm gonna try and bend here. Oh, come here. Oh, I got him. Hold on. We're gonna move this guy outside. Got to move him outside because we cannot have big spiders in the studio. But I'm not about killing the spiders because of the bugs they eat. All right. Oh, give me a little bit of a heart attack there. This thing was huge. That was like the biggest daddy long legs I've ever seen.
Wow.
You're like Indiana Jones with snakes, it sounds like, right?
I hate
spiders.
Snakes. No, spiders don't really scare me because I like spiders because they eat a lot of bugs. I don't
Yes.
like the snakes. Snakes, like I said, was it last night on the show or the night before? It's snakes, sharks, cotton balls. Oh, I hate cotton balls. Styrofoam, soccer, and gnomes. Those are my fears in life.
You know, there could be a song written about all of those things, I would imagine.
Oh. How do you, seriously, how does anybody like cotton balls? Honestly, those things are horrible. Absolutely horrible.
Oh, gosh. Dave, got
styrofoam.
Well, styrofoam for sure. You got to tell the story about, the high-end models in Europe dipping orange juice and various protein drinks with cotton balls and just eating the cotton ball, and that's all they eat. Now,
I heard about that.
I couldn't believe it, and there is not a medical advice at all in this kind of statement. I'm just pointing out a fact of cotton balls are not very good in that regard.
No, cotton balls are disgusting. Cotton balls are disgusting. Oh. And styrofoam, when it rubs together and it makes that shrieking sound. Oh, I don't even want to. I'll tell you, I see styrofoam and I run the opposite direction. I cannot handle it. I got a big time phobia from it. I don't know what the hell that is. But nonetheless, we're going to move on. Talking about premonitions, real or fake. I had, like I said, Lori Moon Boggs on last week. And she had a miracle child after many times trying, her and her husband, to have a family. They finally were able to get pregnant, and the child always said that, or she always had premonitions that the child was not going to be around long. Next thing you know, at 8 years old, the child dies in a car accident that she was in.
Aww.
And she had premonitions about it, and she still believes to this day that her son from the other side comes and communicates and talks to her and has really calmed her down about it. But I have to ask here, and Tessa, we'll start with you on this one. We have a lot of people in this paranormal world, or just the world in general, who swear that they have premonitions that come true. And, when something big happens in this world, whether it's an earthquake, a tidal wave, 9/11, another war, or whatever, everybody's like, oh, I had a premonition about that 6 months ago or 6 months before it happened. I knew it was going to happen. I just didn't know when. And you grudgingly believe some of these people. So I'm just curious, are you one to buy into premonitions and whether or not people are seeing events coming in the future?
I'm not into buying just anything. I've had a couple on my own, and I've known family members, such as my father-in-law. He would predict earthquakes in other countries, the tunnels coming from Mexico to the United States that were big enough to house semi-trucks, which they didn't find until months later. My mother, she predicted her own death to the point where she had her father plan her funeral with her. As far as mine, I knew a car accident was happening, and I went around the car like 5 or 6 times, making sure that my niece kept her seatbelt buckled and wouldn't take it off. Even if she was tired, I was telling her how she could lay down and everything. And they ended up having a car accident. As soon as the helicopter flew out from the hospital, I knew it was for them. But there are so many out there, people trying to predict things all the time, and I don't know, it's hard for me to buy people's premonitions, and even my own. Like, sometimes you don't want to believe it's real, but they do come to pass quite often. But it's hard to know what to believe and what not to believe, so I kind of just like to let the dice fall where they may and see what actually happens. And so many times the end of time has been predicted for us, and one of the two most common things since the beginning of time is the end is near and kids these days. So even though we see these things in the news and everything that's adding up that would line up with that, there's just been so many dates that have come and gone. I don't buy it anymore.
I had a premonition come true a couple weeks ago. And I used to work for this gentleman. He was the nicest, greatest boss that I ever had in my life. Just a fantastic human being. But his ex-wife, and she was his wife at the time, was one of the most evil, wicked people I have ever met on this planet. Really, like, it was just, everything was spiteful, everything was anger and treating people like she was above them. And it was so despicable that I actually refused to even deal with her. And luckily I was in a position that I could do that. I mean, we went through 5 receptionists in I think like the 13 months, 14 months that I was there. It was terrible. And she's one of the reasons why I changed companies too. But the main thing is, I used to see the fact that she was going to be dead in a couple of years. And just the energy around her was so difficult to be around, and the anger and the sadness, and the fact that you could tell that she was a very, very lonely woman. But everybody hated her. Everybody in our community hated her. And it's no way to live. That's got to be a tough way to live. And I kind of felt a little sorry for her. But nonetheless, I didn't care for the way she treated people. And I really saw a prediction or a premonition that she was going to be killed because she drove like a maniac. I thought it was going to be a car accident. But 3 weeks ago, she drowned in one of the local lakes.
Holy shnikes.
I didn't even know about this. And until one of our former receptionists texted me and said, "How did you know that she was going to die?" And I went, "Who?" And she said the person's name, and I'm like, "Wow, what happened?" Well, she died in the lake. She drowned. And this just happened. And I called it that it was going to be within 2 to 3 years, that she is going to have a tragic death. And I guess what happened was her and her friend were on the lake. They jumped off the boat to go for a swim in the lake because it's a beautiful lake. And the winds pushed the boat away. The one friend was able to get back, but this person whom I knew did not. And it's tripping me out about these premonitions as to whether or not we're actually able to see these events off of people's energy. Chris, what do you think?
Well, first of all, if you had called it essentially or had this premonition, is it a possibility because she was such a horrible person that you may have just had that frustration and it's like, I'd really like to do something about this at this moment, or if it's a possibility to say, well, this person could have an unfortunate end just because they are so horrible. Karma works in interesting ways. Or if she is just a very reckless person, sometimes our brains can just pick things up that we can't see consciously, and we kind of figure things out in the back of our minds. And that's a lot of the time where premonitions come from. That's a lot of the time what our sixth sense is. It's our brain processing tons and tons of information that we're not even aware of. And it's one of the ways we can, as they say, if you have a problem, sleep on it, and you can usually come up with a solution in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
And I get that. And, I'm the type of person where I don't like bad things happening to people. All right? I don't care who it is, if I know them or not. Even some of these, bad people who end up getting shot and killed, let's say they're involved with some gang, I feel bad about that. Because who knows if they were able to straighten out their lives, if maybe inside that brain was a cure for cancer or a cure for some disease or to better this world in some place. And I like to see the hope in people. But on the flip side, I just could not explain it. And maybe it is karma. Maybe it is karma, Chris, that I was seeing that eventually her time was going to run out for the way she treated people over the last 20 years, because she always felt that there were people people were below her, that she was a socialite and all sorts of stuff. But I mean, premonition-wise, I'm just really not sure, Chris.
Now, exactly how did you see this happening? Like, did you see the exact situation, or was it more of a...
No, I saw it as her getting in a car accident, because she was somebody who was a tailgater. You know, she drove a Porsche. She was somebody who was a tailgater, drove way above the speed limit, and basically felt she owned everything, and the world should move over for her. So I actually saw it as a really bad car accident. But I didn't expect the drowning. I just knew on the time level that she didn't have long, like within a couple of years. That's the one that I'm struggling with right now. And a lot of people do.
But if it were a premonition, wouldn't you have seen her drowning after going swimming?
Well, I agree. Fully agree. This is a confusing part. I mean, sometimes you get the timeline, but you don't get the exact event. You just know it's going to be tragic.
Yeah, there's so many different paths, and if you go this way, this could happen. If you go another way, this other tragic accident can happen that would have taken her life. All he knew was it was a tragic ending, Fast and Furious behind the wheel, or swimming in the middle of a beautiful lake. It's hard to pin down what exactly is going to happen sometimes.
Michael W. Hall, I want to get your opinion in on this, on premonitions. Do you buy them?
Oh, yes. Yeah, definitely. I think we've all, had that premonitory dream where we wake up, we think something is going to happen, and it does. Matter of fact, most premonitions, I understand, happen quite soon. So your premonition of a woman passing away, and there was a relatively longer period of time between that. That's an interesting phenomenon in itself. But most premonitions are pretty quickly resolved. But being a researcher interested in the paranormal most of my life, and now being the old paranormal lawyer they call me, I want to get some proof of premonitions. And so I've always thought that would be an interesting thing to do, is set up some kind of a central registry for people to send their premonitions to and see if they actually do come true. Matter of fact, if you'll just go to the web, you can punch in premonition registries or those kinds of Google words. You'll find a bunch of them. There's some famous ones around the country where if you have something that you are very strong feelings about, you can actually call them up, and for free, most of them will just register your premonition. And I know some of them have investigators that would like to follow up on things that actually come true. We've all heard of the person or even the animals who can predict earthquakes, for instance, that kind of thing. And of course, natural disasters. There was an actual FBI agent that I've heard on various talk shows that mentioned that one of his jobs post 9/11 was to go around and interview many of the children that had been some kind of premonitions had come to them about these Twin Towers collapsing. Matter of fact, some of the children had drawn pictures in school or mentioned something to their teacher or their parents, and the parents happened to either write it down or tell, for instance, the FBI about it. And it was kind of like a weird desk that he was working on in the FBI, like the X-Files. And they sent him out afterwards just to interview these children to find out what they knew and how they knew it. So I know that premonitions are taken very seriously by some government agencies for sure.
Yeah, I've heard that about that too, and that's an interesting study where there's been numerous kids who have been born post 9/11 who believe that they are reincarnated souls of some of the horrific tragedies, the way people died on that. And that would actually be an interesting show to do. I may try and pick that up. But Chris, I want to bring you back in here for a second in regards to premonitions, because 9/11 is a good example of this, where everybody and their dog who came out of the woodworks basically saying, oh, I saw this happening. I had a dream 6 nights before or the night before that there was planes flying into buildings and I didn't know what it was. I thought it was just a bad dream. Do you think many people are just trying to jump on the bandwagon with premonitions, especially when they're big like that? Or do you believe that maybe mass consciousness has something to do with predicting or people seeing in premonition or dream state events like this happening?
Well, consciousness is a very interesting subject because we know physically how the brain works. We don't necessarily understand how consciousness works. And the idea of a mass consciousness, that's kind of a scary proposition. Because at that point, your thoughts aren't necessarily your own to a certain extent. Even when it came to phenomena such as the Mothman, and whether this was an actual being or whether it was a mass hallucination or giant owls, they always used to say that he would appear or it would appear right before a mass calamity, such as a bridge collapsing or mass riots, etc., etc. And is that a manifestation of an impending calamity or impending doom that's going to befall a group of people? That's one thing I honestly I don't know. Is it danger signs that the mind is just kind of showing to you to get your attention to the dangers at hand, and it's the only way that it can actually kind of jump out at you, as it were? So, I've learned to follow my gut, as it were. I've had my own premonitions, and I can honestly say that if I'd listened to my gut more often when I was younger, I'd probably be a little bit better off. So I'm honestly saying that, yeah, it's a possibility.
Yeah, so you're going to have the final word on premonitions here. Do you think that we are using some sort of mass consciousness where people are having this type of activity happen, where they are picking up the energy of these premonitions or of these tragedies that are going to happen? Or do you think that people are just wanting to jump on the bandwagon and say, oh yeah, like 3 years previous to this, I saw a fire burning in New York, or I saw airplanes, crashing into buildings?
Yeah, well, I think that we're all, born with these gifts. And I think that Chris was right on to say that we all have that gut instinct or, that third eye or sixth sense or whatever you want to call it. And it just depends on how you're able to tune into that. A lot of people just write it off as nothing and they don't listen to it and they don't tune into that and build upon it. And others do kind of know how to build on it or listen to it time after time and realize that your gut instinct is key and it never really leads you astray. And I do think there are people out there that do want to jump on the bandwagon and want that attention. But it's neither here nor there as far as their predictions go. It's just, they get that 15 minutes of limelight and then it's over. Perhaps that's enough for them, or perhaps they'll try again. But I think it all goes into tuning into yourself and trusting yourself and that intuition or that gut instinct, and just building on it by listening to it time and time again.
We only got a couple minutes here before we're going to go to break, so we'll just end it on this topic here, Michael. I'll bring you in on this one as well. The mass consciousness side, where people are having, if we continue what Chris and Tessa said, are you a buyer into the fact that people are having this, or that they just want to be a part of something weird and strange and say they called it, because that way people will talk about them and they have something to talk about where they are the center of attention?
Well, of course, you've always got that segment of the personalities out there that will do that just for attention, for sure. Everyone probably knows that kind of person in their circle of acquaintances ourselves. But, the real interesting thing about mass consciousness comes down to some major studies and some actual theories out there. There's the one theory, the 100th monkey theory or syndrome, where enough people or enough even animals, supposedly rats and studies like that do a task over and over again. The new rats or entities that come along already know the skill. They don't have to be taught the skill. So there seems to be some kind of mass consciousness there as well. And there was a major thing that came out after 9/11 with this random numbers generator and the major studies that these things have, where they say they can spike prior to major events around the country and around the world. And I don't know how that ties in with premonition in itself, with mass consciousness, but I am very fascinated with that kind of scientific approach for these kinds of issues.
Everyone, I'm going to get you to hold on here as we're going to go out to break tonight on Spaced Out Radio. Coming up in hour number 2 with the SOR Paranormal Roundtable, we're going to get into the Adam Project. What's the fascination with serial killers? And what cryptid is likely to exist outside of Bigfoot? Our guests tonight, Tessa Nicole Thomas from Spaced Out Weekend, Michael W. Hall from the UFO I-Team and the Paranormal Lawyer, and Chris George Zuger from the Den of Lore and Reality Paranormal right here on Spaced Out Radio. We'll be back with more SOR and the Roundtable after this.
Find your escape where time has no limits. It's about living today and cherishing the heritage of yesterday. A spirit of adventure for what is new, with the nostalgia of the past. Your timepiece is a reflection of who you are. Life surrounded by beauty from the world around us to the soul within. EscapeWatches.com. There is no time like the present to enjoy your escape. Use promo code SMF2017 for your 20% discount today.
The freedom to post what you want, when you want. That's the social media freedom you need. Social Media Freedom is the free app in your app store. No need to worry about going to jail or being shadow banned any longer. It's the freedom to say what you feel. The freedom to know Big Brother isn't watching. It's the way social media is supposed to be. Social Media Freedom. It's time to set yourself free. Download from your app store today.
Coming September 28th to the 30th, it's our first annual Caribou Paracon, put on by Spaced Out Radio and the Canadian Society of Questers. 3 days of paranormal, supernatural, and spiritual knowledge in the beautiful 108 Mile Ranch, British Columbia. Tickets are $150 Canadian for the event, being held at the Spruce Hills Resort and Spa. Come watch our featured speaker, Grant Cameron, along with Lorian Fenton, David Weatherly, Ross Allison, and more. The Caribou Paracon, celebrating everything paranormal.
Hi there, I'm Butch Witkowski, lead investigator with U4Cop. On the final Monday of every month, you can listen to me and host Dave Scott on Spaced Out Radio's Strange Days. We're going to get to the heart of the matter when it comes to what's happening out there. People are seeing and experiencing things from ET contact to Bigfoot, and I want to hear about it. Your experiences are what we investigators need to help solve these unknown mysteries. So tune in at spacedoutradio.com to the final Monday of every month from Butch Witkowski's Strange Days.
Hi there, this is Tessa Nicole Thomas, and I'm going to take you for a ride every Sunday night on Spaced Out Sundays. I'm going to set up your week with some strange tales from across North America, from psychic readings, Sasquatch, UFOs, to the most haunted locations. Come join me at spacedoutradio.com starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, and let's get weird together. I'd love for you to join me. Spaced Out Sundays at spacedoutradio.com.
There's news, and there's The Encounter. This is Spaced Out Radio News Director Everett Thiemer inviting you to check out The Encounter. Our half-hour news segment every Monday through Friday night is different compared to what you're used to. Our goal is to bring you the weird, strange, and interesting stories the mainstream tends to leave out, and stories that will make you scratch your head in disbelief. The Encounter can also be found at spacedoutradio.com and on our Facebook page, SOR The Encounter. Come give us a read.
We're bringing scientific thought to the paranormal. Hi there, this is Spaced Out Radio scientist Chris Cogswell. Join me, Chris Zuger, and Dave Scott the second Wednesday of every month. where we break down the who from the woo when it comes to everything paranormal. We'll investigate and try to bring sensible answers to those straight and sometimes outlandish questions people have. Hey, not everything is an answer, but we'll do our best. Listen in to Reality Paranormal only on Spaced Out Radio.
Heading to Vancouver and looking for some great nightlife? The Moose Vancouver is the place to be. Catch a game on one of the big screens or just come rock out to your favorite 80s and 90s hair bands. Great food starting at $6.95. The Moose Vancouver is open until 2 a.m. nightly. It's easy to find near the corner of Nelson and Granville. The Moose Vancouver is the official rocking bar of Spaced Out Radio.
Are you interested in advertising on Spaced Out Radio? Head to our website at spacedoutradio.com and click on our advertising tab. There, you will find an assortment of ways you can get your product out there with us, from radio commercials to banners and social media. Have a product you like our hosts to endorse? We can do that too. Visit spacedoutradio.com for more details.
Do you want to know what's really going on in your world? Do you have questions about who you can trust in the mainstream media? Then look no further than the Rebel Planet. Come get the straight answers right here at spacedoutradio.com. Join me, Jamie Sexton, creator of Rebel Planet News, as I fill you in on the stories behind the stories. All you truth seekers, be sure to tune in to Rebel Planet on spacedoutradio.com the third Thursday of every month.
Visit purpleplates.com today. For over 40 years, the Purple Energy Plates have been delivering amazing results for their many customers. Inspired by the great genius Nikola Tesla, the harmony, healing, and energetic effects of the plates have proven over and over to be beneficial and often miraculous to thousands of customers. Check their site for daily specials and choose from their many energy products. You won't be sorry. Visit them today at purpleplates.com.
So, you love talk radio? Then you'll love TalkStreamLive.com. TalkStream Live is always on, 24/7, with the best streaming talk shows. Find your favorite talkers and discover some new ones. It's free, readily available online or on mobile with any smartphone or tablet. Finding your favorite talk shows all in one place has gotten a whole lot easier. Just go to TalkStreamLive.com. Be sure to download the free apps from Google Play or the iTunes App Store.
Hey, this is Canadian Paranormal Investigator Mike Moore. The third Wednesday of every month, I'll be teaming up with Dave Scott to bring you Ghosts of the Great White North. Each month, we will bring on guests from across Canada to discuss their ghostly encounters. Canada is a paranormal hotbed with stories you've never heard, so we're going to bring them to you. So get comfy on your Chesterfield, grab a donut, and join us, eh?
The views and opinions expressed by tonight's guest and topic of discussion do not necessarily represent the official policy or position of Spaced Out Radio, Spaced Out Weekend, Spaced Out Radio Limited, its hosts, syndicated carriers, or anyone associated with this broadcast. Would you like to connect with us? Head to spacedoutradio.com for all your latest show info. And hit us up on Twitter using the hashtag Spaced Out Radio. Now, back to Dave Scott and SOR.
Welcome back to the second hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. I am your host, Dave Scott. Thank you so much for being with us. This weekend, the lovely and talented Tessa Nicole Thomas is back for Spaced Out Weekend. You can check it on out at spacedoutradio.com starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern Time. We get everyone listening in on SOR's radio network and the Deep Talk Radio Network, and we thank you so much for doing that. I know we got listeners all around the world checking us out tonight. And don't forget, you can check out all of our archives for free. Go to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do me a favor, hit that subscribe button. Now, we don't have Bill Cardwell. He has taken the weekend off. Yeah, him and his wife have gone on a date this weekend. So Michael McNeil has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Sindosh. Sign-Dosh is your password. Make sure you use it wisely, space travelers. Mike or Bill set the password each and every night, right here on the mighty SOR. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you. You can rock out to Bumblefoot, shop at our store, read up on the encounter online, and so much more at spacedoutradio.com. Don't forget, you can also get your tickets right now. Go to questers.ca, open up a new window, go to questers.ca, click on the fall conference, get your tickets for the first annual Caribou Paracon presented by Spaced Out Radio and the Canadian Society of Questers, September 28th through 30th. Michael W. Hall, who's on our panel, will be there that weekend, giving us a UFO Skywatch. We might even sneak in a second one. I don't know. We'll see how the weather cooperates. But we got Grant Cameron, Lorian Fenton, David Weatherly, Ross Allison, Eric Cooper, Michael Morin, myself, Paisley Town. Lots of people you will recognize from this show. So get your tickets. Go to questers.ca and click on the fall conference. Our roundtable discussion happens the final Friday of every month, which coincides with this month being the final date of August 2018, heading into the final 4 months of the year. The final quarter starts here very, very soon. I'm on the West Coast, so we got an hour 55 minutes left. But we are joined tonight by Chris George Zuger from the Den of Lore and Reality Paranormal here on Spaced Out Radio, Tessa Nicole Thomas from the Weekend Show, and Michael W. Hall from UFO I-Team down in Washington State. Everyone, welcome back.
Thank you for having us.
Oh, no problem. No problem. We're going to get into it right now. And Chris, I'm going to start with you on this one because I got to get you fired up. I got to get you stroking the goatee a little bit here. To the Stars Academy announced earlier this month. Here we go. To the Stars Academy announced earlier this month that they were starting a new project called the Adam Project, which is basically, to put it in a nutshell for everybody, this is where if you have any type of alien artifacts, alien metals, or you've seen a crash site, or you've gathered something, that they want you to report it to them and give it to them for study. Now, I know you have been very critical about the To the Stars Academy, as have I. I'm not going to hide behind that. But nonetheless, there is a lot of strange about this because To the Stars on their website really hasn't gone into the whole UFO phenomena. Yet, with the videos and with everything they seem to be doing, are they doing anything good here, Chris?
When are they actually ever doing anything good? Let's see. The Adam Project, and originally it was supposed to have been its own organization, if I'm not mistaken, which was quote-unquote founded by their quote-unquote co-founder, Hal Puthoff, whom has been running paranormal scams since the 70s. And I thought that they had these metamaterials already. So, if they have access to government information, and have been, and one of their main guys is somebody who worked with these materials, why are they asking the public for them? Shouldn't they just be asking the government or Bigelow for them? So it doesn't make much sense. The only evidence that I've seen that they're actually running a program is essentially looks like, I think it was posted on DeLong's feed. And it was just looked like a stock photography photo of a nondescript office with a nondescript, bottle that you would kind of pee into for the doctor, as it were, with a giant black box over top of it. And I thought these individuals were supposed to be about disclosure. Why are they covering up what the evidence is in the bottle? The only reason that they'd be doing that is if there was nothing actually in there. So... Is it good? No, because it is a bunch of people running around, running a scam, taking advantage of individuals who have no critical thinking and extracting as many dollars out of them as humanly possible. I called it when they first announced it that they're not going to disclose, and anything that they put out as evidence is going to be found to be false. And pretty well, this has been happening with every single announcement or every single piece of evidence they've put out. People will disagree, But if you know anything about video analysis, if you know anything about talking to the Pentagon or running a FOIA request, you can put two and two together pretty darn quickly to realize that these guys have been blowing nothing but smoke up everyone's butts since they started talking about it.
Chris, we're going to bring you back in. I want to get Michael W. Hall in on this from the UFOI team in Washington State. This is what it says on the website, Michael, for To the Stars. It says, TTS Academy begins their journey to collect, isolate, secure, transport, and successfully deliver materials reported to have come from advanced aerospace vehicles of unknown origin. The further scientific analysis of such alleged materials brings the potential discovery of new metamaterials which can launch a journey of discovery and breakthroughs that could extend for decades. My question is, why aren't they sending their own team out to these alleged crash sites to go look for their own materials?
It would be a lot easier if you just made the announcement and said that they're going to, study the metamaterials that other people might find for you rather than have to go out on your own to find them all. So that's very interesting, this whole idea and an announcement that they are making here. And maybe, it is something that they are trying to compare with these metamaterials that Chris was mentioning, that Robert Bigelow has and is studying as a contractor to the CIA, some would say the deep state, in this regard, because if you remember that article in the New York Times newspaper, December 16th of last year, that actually came out and interviewed the Department of Defense officials, the Pentagon officials, including Luis Elizondo, one of the counter-espionage folks in the Pentagon, about the Advanced Aerospace Threat Program, ATIP, and the idea that they actually admitted for the first time in the history of our hominid population that they exist, that UFOs or UAP, unidentified aerial phenomena, actually exist. But if you read further on down in that article, most people didn't, to get to the details. Oh, good for you. And the details in that article made mention of the fact that they actually had a downed craft, and they had metamaterials that they were studying from this craft that seemed to have effects on the human physiology, they said. And now, that is just way wild and weird, but I believe that that's just the case on some of these either craft, that exist or are said to exist. But the fact that they're now out trying to get more of it, trying to either compare what they've come up with in their studies so far, I don't know how that is going to work. And I'll tell you what, if anyone ever does find some metamaterial that they would be willing to share with the government or Robert Bigelow, any private contractor, I would contact a lawyer immediately just to make sure that you're going to be able to, survive the process of disclosing this stuff to the government, and or probably protect the material itself from being totally stolen, and or any repercussions that could come to you or your family because of it.
Tessa, I want to get your opinion on this. I know you're more of a paranormal researcher than a ufologist, but does this seem a little hokey to you that here they are asking everyday people to give them this potential material when they're not even going out to get it themselves? And with all these spooks that are allegedly involved with this team, you think they would know where these alleged crash sites are.
Yeah, I mean, they've been documented and they are everywhere, but Yeah, as far as you guys were saying before, they should go out and get their own information, their own evidence. It's more trustworthy that way. Like, so many different things can happen from one hand to the next, contaminating evidence or losing evidence or whatnot. It's better to go straight to the source and find it on your own. And I think that if they did find something, I mean, they've been doing this for long enough, they could have shared with us, because what most of us are wanting is that disclosure and to have that acknowledgement that, you know, UFOs actually do exist. I do believe that a lot of them are our own and made by our own hand by reverse engineering, but I do believe that there are a lot that are somewhat like spycraft, like in World War I and World War II, and other things that are going on that can't be explained, but just to have that closure and disclosure on things would be great for the field. And, you know, I've gotten my own evidence as far as pictures of UFOs, not even realizing they were there until after I looked back on my pictures. But it's pretty mind-boggling what is going on out there, and wondering why they don't disclose it to us. I think they are trying to in different ways, as far as Ancient Aliens and other shows, just, you know, trying to desensitize us to it, as they are doing with violence and sex and other shows. Hopefully that works, because I don't think we are all sheeple. Like, there are a lot out there, but if it was disclosed, I don't think everybody's going to be running around like chickens with their head cut off. I think, you know, we've been searching for this for centuries, and to have that information and know that it's true and go from there would, I think, help the progress. And I don't see an issue with gathering evidence from different people. You know, the more the merrier, but these days it is kind of hard to decipher through everything to see what is edited and what is not, and there's so much technology, like anything can be created these days. It's a hard field to get that evidence unless you are there at the crash site and you do uncover something.
But should TTSA, Chris, be relying on the public to bring in these materials that could be of alien descent, or should they not have their own investigative team going out to look at these? Because here's the thing. They've teamed up with MUFON. That was very, very evident when Jan Harzan and Luis Elizondo were on George Knapp's Coast to Coast a few weeks ago. All right? And when I look at that, and I didn't even know that they, at that point, that they were working together. I thought that was just, you know, a little bit of hearsay at that point. And I thought, oh, geez, is this going to turn into another Bigelow situation? But here they are working together, and they've got MUFON investigators all over the place. So why not set up a team in different cordons? What's the word I'm looking for there? In different quadrants of the United States, of Canada, or wherever, to go look for these materials rather than sitting there begging the public to hand them on in.
Well, they're doing it because they're not actually trying to find metamaterials, or if they are, they may be waiting a very long time, and I would seriously question their, I'm going to say whether they're right in the head. They have individuals that are experts in biology, in head injuries. There is one individual who was an administrator for Skunkworks. He ran the department, but he was not an engineer, at least as far as his bio is concerned. Now, you're also talking about an organization that has been running a massive under the cover PR campaign by manipulating media organizations to be able to get articles into mainstream media and presenting their own guys as the sources, knowing that individuals who are writing the articles probably aren't going to do the due diligence. I know this because I've talked to them. And if as far as I'm concerned, and as far as what I know and the information that I know, we discussed the article that had gone through all of this and started this entire thing. I have read that article. I've read it extensively. They've actually silently retracted information, such as the claim that the Tic Tac video and a few of the other videos were provided by the DoD, or that they were declassified. that was a lie. So if you're or anyone else is expecting these individuals to actually be earnestly trying to find metamaterials, and considering that George Knapp sat on that quote-unquote 13-page document for a year he sat on it. If you think that if they get anything that they're going to tell anybody, I would say that there is more of a likelihood of me getting elected president of the United States of America. Plain and simple. These guys...
Go ahead.
These guys shouldn't be taken seriously. They should be investigated by the SEC. And plain and simple, I can't believe that people actually believe them. It boggles my mind that people's critical thinking skills have gone so far out that they think that these individuals actually care about the truth or care about the UFO subject matter whatsoever.
Michael W. Hall, what's your thoughts on what Chris had to say?
Well, I'm just thinking about Zug for president right now.
He's
Canadian. I don't know what we got right now.
He's Canadian. We need, trust me. You guys got one. You guys got one extreme down there. We got the other extreme up here. You don't want any of this.
Nice. I think Chris is right on there. I mean, these guys. Let's just face it. This whole to the Stars Academy thing is definitely a spin, is what it is, as far as I can tell. I believe that there is some kind of pressure on the powers that be to very quickly red pill the public on some kind of truth that is coming down the pike relatively quickly. If only last December they come out and confirm the existence of UFOs, and they actually have metamaterials, they say, that are affecting the physiology of human beings, what are they going to do very shortly? Say, for instance, before this coming December, what is going to be the next shoe to drop? And I think what's going on is that the pressure is on the government to actually come up with some kind of a plan to stay ahead of whatever disclosure is going to happen. They need to spin the actual thing that's coming down the line so that they can stay in power, so they don't have a Nuremberg trial situation where everybody in power is going to be put on the stand because they didn't disclose many of these things that are coming down the road. So I think that the Stars Academy is that kind of a spin process that the government is using to potentially red pill the public as soon as possible before something else is going to happen.
Tessa, do you think that eventually this is going to move on forward because they aren't getting the response from the paranormal or the UFO community that they maybe thought they would? Or do you think this To the Stars even cares because they're going after the public and they've been able to attack the mainstream media with their stories much more so than any other group in history?
Well, I think if they keep taking the route they are as far as keeping things under wrap and not disclosing information and, people not sharing information, I don't see how it can move forward because they aren't doing their own legwork. They're just kind of relying on everybody to do it. I think it's going to take them getting out there in the field and shaking hands and gaining the trust of people because that's a big thing anymore. People really aren't trusting each other. And why should they? Because we're not really seeing any results from them as far as I can tell. So I don't know. They might be at a stalemate.
This is where I think it's a little bit of a touchy subject, Chris, because they have been the only ones who've been able to capture the media's attention, the mainstream media's attention, that is.
Well, it's very easy to be able to do that when, you can at least dangle a tantalizing story in front of some unsuspecting journalists' eyes, or when you have individuals who are within the UFO community, and I'm not going to mention their names on air, but who have mainstream media connections and with outlets, and they conspire or work together to release a narrative, I'll call it, an overarching story, and then benefit financially from doing so. It goes to kind of the tried and true saying, a sucker's born every minute. If people actually look at the people in the behind the scenes and step outside of the narrative sandbox, they start to realize potentially that things aren't what they seem. So, we're talking about pressure from the outside. The only pressure that they're getting is probably from their diminishing bank accounts at the time, because I don't think that they're getting any pressure from any deep state. I think it just comes down to they want to make money. They've been in the UFO community for 30, 40 years. They've used individuals' susceptibility to fantastical stories to be able to, spin any number of wonderful science fiction tales for individuals, which have later been proven to be false, sold books, gotten radio shows, been on TV. They're borderline celebrities. And people take that as credibility. It's not. They haven't provided any actual proof that isn't easily disprovable. Like, for instance, George Knapp's 13-page document. Anybody who knows anything or has ever worked in government can look at that and say, this thing is fake. Plain and simple. And we trust these people? My goodness. What kind of a community have we turned into, or a society at large, when we take hucksters and snake oil salesmen's word over our own critical thinking and actual evidence? Because if you do the FOIA request or you actually talk to the Pentagon, they don't even dance around it. They're like, yeah, no, this wasn't a UFO program. It was for finding foreign aircraft. No, we did not declassify that. Like, not even, I can't confirm or deny it. They're like, no, we didn't even touch that video. So you tell me, are the people whom have been putting out evidence, let's say, a photo that turns out to be Mylar balloons, or are downloading videos from the internet that have been out since 2007 and then slapping a logo on the bottom of it? Do you think that we should be giving them this money? Do you know that they made over $2.4 million just in donations? Quote, I say donations because people quote unquote invested in this organization to buy shares. What? They're non-controlling, non-voting shares. And they did it right just below the level that they would get under massive scrutiny from the SEC. And you think, like, and people don't even realize this, and they think, oh, disclosure's coming. No, disclosure's never coming. Disclosure is not coming. The people who are saying disclosure's coming, they're saying, yeah, disclosure's coming, while they're taking your wallet out of your back pocket. Like, it's insane to me. It is an alternate reality that I can't even fathom.
Let's reverse the role here for a second here. All right, take away what kind of publicity that the To the Stars Academy has had. And Michael, I'm curious, and Chris, I'll go back to you on this here in a few minutes. But Michael, I'm curious because I don't think your client, as the paranormal lawyer, your client Peter Davenport, is very supportive of To the Stars. I know that there are other people in this field, whether it's Grant Cameron or Victor Vigiani or Richard Dolan, don't seem to have a lot of respect for what they are doing, even though they highlight what they are doing. All right. A lot of people in the field of ufology are seeing right through this. So where do they think that they are going to get these metamaterials from if their own community does not support what they are doing for the most part?
Well, that's a good question. I think most serious ufologists seem to be out of the loop here when it comes to Tom DeLonge and To the Stars Academy. This seems to be the inside group that are running this program here. Matter of fact, if you just look at their publicity materials, you'll notice that Dr. Hal Puthoff is actually ahead of this company that is well positioned, they say, to study these research materials called EarthTech. So they're keeping all their cards close to the vest, and you would think that an organization like this would reach out to all the substantial and qualified ufologists in their field, especially Peter Davenport. Let's put it that way. He's been, ahead of the National UFO Reporting Center for over 25 years. Dr. Richard Haynes, again, from the NARCAP organization, who was in charge of the pilot reporting agency from the military pilots and civilians and private pilots. They have catalogs and databases of reports of people that have seen sightings, probably even reports of people that have run across materials as well. But it doesn't seem like they are doing that. They're not reaching out, trying to be good neighbors and get involved in the actual UFO community for some reason. So it shows to me that I believe this is part of some kind of a spin that is being made and being publicized by the inside track folks that are in charge here for some purpose that I think most people, as we've been talking about, are well aware that this is just not the real reality of UFO research. You know, if they're thinking that they need to study metamaterials at this point in the game, when most of us know that they've already got the metamaterials to travel into deep space and do many things that these UFOs and UAPs are said to have done with the, potential reverse engineering, even with the TR-3Bs and the military craft that we believe that have been constructed because of the reverse engineering that's been done. So I don't know why they keep coming forth here and saying, well, we need to figure out what this stuff is so we can do it ourselves, when we pretty much know they've already done that.
Mm-hmm. Zooks, you got the final word on this one.
They put out a video showing Elizondo going cross country, very badly produced. He's a horrible actor, at least when he's not in front of a crowd saying, "Oh, I can't talk about that." They put out a trailer for crying out loud. I got sent this when it was uploaded, and I watched it for about 2 seconds, and I said, yeah, no, that's insane. If you need to promote that your guy, quote unquote, is traveling cross country, whom people like George Knapp have continually changed the story on exactly what was going on with ATIP, because every single time new information showing that their line comes out, well, they change the narrative, because it's that's what they do. And people are going to believe it. They know people are going to believe it, because they've been doing this long enough to know that they can say, let's say they got this information from Harry Reid. Who's going to question them? Who's going to be able to come up with the actual proof against them? Because if you talk against them, the people whom have a cult-like belief that they're the people bringing disclosure are going to attack you and say that you're crazy, and they're just going to throw out as much of the narrative back at you to show why they're right. But it's all make-believe, and these people are delusional, and they're it's seriously, if it didn't make me so angry, I would cry at the state that this community has gotten to with regards to this subject matter, because I've seen individuals who are relatively intelligent be completely bamboozled, and they can't even say anything outside of anything they have not read from whatever blog that Knapp has one of his guys writing a story about. And they're all, and the people writing the stories are all colluding together for it. So, and most of the time they're doing it because they wanted to get into the top level of ufology, or they've got a show and they're trying to get Tom DeLonge on the show. They'll never go on your show. They're only going to go on George Knapp's show, or on Coast to Coast AM, or Fade to Black. Reason being is that they're the ones that are in on it to help with the narrative getting out there. And nobody sees this, and nobody questions it. I seem to be one of the only ones doing it. And I'm just
absolutely agree.
I'm up to here, and I'm done with it.
All right, let's move on to another topic here, because I watch a lot of YouTube. I don't have cable, and I watch a lot of YouTube, and I look at the numbers that a lot of these different types of stories, whether it's UFOs or true crime or Bigfoot videos, are getting, and they are in the millions for the most part. But one of the topics that I see a spike in our own numbers for is when we do something on true crime, like we did earlier this month with the Black Dahlia killer with Pew Eatwell. And I'm sitting here thinking, why do you think, Tessa, the public has such a fascination with serial killers or high-profile murders?
Well, I think as Homo sapiens, we have always had that interest or that intrigue about death, and especially those who dish it out and seem to do it repetitively, and it gets worse and worse and worse. And so we like to delve into their mindset and try to figure out what makes them tick and what exactly happened to them to make them this way. But yeah, there's always just been that morbid sense of curiosity when it comes to death. And the people that do these things are really sick and twisted. So that's another part of the morality of it. I think people are just intrigued by that point. I don't know. It's very interesting. I watch a lot of the First 48 and all these shows about people who kill and serial killers, and there's shows like this on Netflix, and they are really big. Have you watched I believe it's called The Mind Chaser? About these. That
one I haven't got to yet.
Yeah, it's a pretty good one, and I'm waiting for the next season to come out, but it's about these guys that go in and do this. They interview these serial killers, trying to figure out, what's happening in their lives that make them this way, and, trying to block that, and actually get, evidence time after time. And a lot of times it adds up to, not getting that love and stuff when they were younger, that love and affection that they so longed for. And when they don't get that, it just kind of makes them cold, and they really don't think like the rest of us. It's pretty interesting and intriguing and sick at the same time. I feel kind of guilty watching it, but at the same time, it's like driving past an accident. You just can't help but look,
Mm-hmm. Now, I'm curious, Michael W. Hall, being a lawyer here, where, you have defended people in regards to lawsuits, and you've had people go away and do time on convictions. Why do you think that there is this addiction or this lust or fascination with anybody who is a multiple murderer? I mean, all you have to do is look at that young 18-year-old kid who shot up the high school in Florida earlier this year. And he was getting love letters by the hundreds. And he had only been in jail for a couple days at that point.
Yeah, exactly. And of course, there's the Charles Manson syndrome, where that's exactly the case. These people actually get fan letters, people writing to them to have some kind of relationship, even on paper, with someone who has done these grotesque and egregious crimes. The only thing I can think of is that if, for instance, you'll go to any courthouse in any county in the area that you live, and if there is a major a murder trial that's going on, you will find the gallery pretty much full of not people that are in the families necessarily. They will be there as well, but mostly people that want to watch and what's going on, and they're intrigued with the whole process. The thing that kind of rings into my brain is the To Kill a Mockingbird, old classic film with Gregory Peck. It was the kind of thing that the packed courthouse was a phenomena that has been kind of like entertainment over the generations. And we also think about, the public hangings and some of the old pictures that I've seen anyway, where literally people come from miles around just to watch what's going on at a public execution. A little bit more down to earth, but still kind of interesting, is I remember on television back in the 60s, I believe it was, there was a show called Divorce Court that was very popular. People just flocked to this show just to find out all the strange things that were going on in other people's relationships, because that was back in the old days where you had to prove grounds for getting a divorce. So I think that that Tessa is correct. There is a part of the human brain that is either evil or reptilian, or just needs to have some kind of these emotions played out, perhaps. And they do that with external forces and external people that aren't able to control those emotions like we all are.
But isn't this sickening and delusional, Chris George Zuger, that people have a sadistic fascination inside themselves, whether or not they are, criminal or not, to learn and find out about these serial killers or these very high-profile murderers?
Well, it's perfectly natural to want to be informed on subjects that are either interesting or thrilling or outside of the norm of our day-to-day lives. I don't know about you, but my day-to-day is pretty boring. And hearing how somebody can be so outside of your realm of action and trying to understand it, that's just natural curiosity. These individuals who are committing these crimes are not exactly the greatest people on the planet, to be able to put it lightly. But even evolution works in interesting ways. And, there have been studies that have shown that it's a possibility that individuals who end up being like this, whether it's from birth or through environment, it comes as a result of our own evolution trying to ensure that the survival of the species. The strongest survive in the toughest times, and heaven forbid if we ever, if stuff ever hits the fan and we go to Mad Max Beyond the Thunderdome or Fury Road, to those individuals who are under the age of 30, having individuals like that can actually help a group survive, because you've got individuals who are willing to do whatever is necessary to ensure that they can have the resources or just to be able to make it to the next day. So maybe it's something that's just our personality, trying to understand it, or it's a possibility that we have a certain attraction to these individuals because of certain biological markers that have been with us as a species for hundreds of thousands of years.
I get that, and I can appreciate that, Chris. But do you think that, and I bring Tessa in here, in going off of what Chris says, do you think, though, that people have a little bit of sympathy, almost like the song Sympathy for the Devil, where people have a little bit of sympathy about this person whose life has maybe gone so wrong that they committed all of these heinous crimes?
Well, I do think that we do want to find the best in others, or, kind of see the light at the end of the tunnel. Like, what made this person this way? And a lot of times you do find sympathy. Oh, well, perhaps if his mother had loved him, he wouldn't be such a monster. But on the other end of the spectrum, taking another's life is just wrong and against what we all believe in, unless we are psychopathic. But yeah, I do believe that there is that little tinge in there of humanity that wants to, see the good in someone and see why perhaps they went this direction and, maybe make an excuse. And there are some people that are out there that want to, kind of compare themselves. And, I've been through that too, but luckily, I came out on the other side bright and shiny, but unfortunately this guy didn't. So I'm going to write to him, or people with daddy issues, trying to fall in love with somebody. I don't know what, takes them to that realm where they want to write to them and fall in love with them. And a lot of these people actually get married to these people, even though they'll never be together. It's just, I don't know. Our society is getting pretty dark and ugly and sick in some ways.
It is, because do you not think, Tess, that we are forgetting about the victims here? I mean, some of these moronic people are cold, they're calculated, they're vile, they're disgusting, whatever it may be, whatever sickening adjective you want to use in there. They're cold-blooded killers. And yet we're trying to romanticize with them.
Yeah, for sure. I had another point that I was going to say, but then I lost it. Let me move my head around a little bit and see if I find it. But
all right. Well, while you're thinking about that, let me get to Michael W. Hall here. Same question, Mike. Why are we romanticizing these people when there are a number of victims? I mean, you think of, Ted Bundy, or you think of the Green River Killer in your area, or Richard Kuklinski, who was the mob hitman, or a number of these people, even whoever the serial killer is up here in Canada, who is knocking off all of these First Nations women on the Highway of Tears. I mean, there are some sick and twisted individuals out there that are getting a lot of love, and everybody seems to forget about the victims.
Yeah, exactly. That's what gets the headlines. If it bleeds, it leads. And it's kind of a sad commentary on the human condition itself. And if it's a good story, if it's a story of the victim, it's not as poignant or maybe garnering more readership than the details of the actual killer or perpetrator themselves. The real definition of a serial killer by the FBI is a murderer that kills only two or more people in separate events. And that becomes a serial killer. So just the idea of the name that we've given to these murderers, the serial killers, kind of, I don't know if you think it does, but I think it kind of glorifies the whole idea of people out there going crazy and doing these things. Matter of fact, it is kind of interesting. There's this major studies that have been done about why serial killers do what they do. And basically the top two reasons that are given by the serial killers themselves, number one is the enjoyment of killing. That's crazy, but it is. That's their motivating factor, that they enjoy killing. The second only to financial gain, of course. Some serial killers have motivation to rob and steal as well, but the most thing that people have been able to determine is they actually enjoy doing this kind of a thing. By the way, most serial killers kill with a handgun or a weapon. The next one would be strangling, but basically most people are shot as a victim of a serial killer. So it just kind of goes to show you what our society is dealing with. And I would be interested to find out if the serial killer phenomena is on the rise or whether it's actually waning. I know that crime in general is on the decrease in most metropolitan communities, believe it or not, even though we hear about it in the newspapers and the media. Generally, murders and those kinds of things are on the decrease. But I'm wondering if serial killers are on the rise because of potentially the pressures of society and our economy in general.
Tessa, do you remember your thought, or are we going to move on?
Well, I was just, I believe it was, a lot of it is about control. Like, these people feel like their control was taken from them at an early age, or they feel weak. And the only way that they do feel powerful is to see that light die out in someone's eyes. And, Michael was saying, a lot of times it is with the gun because they are so fearful of their power. Like, they have to do it with a powerful tool, and it takes them away from that. But there are others that are stronger that do like to just choke that life out. And it's more personal generally when that does happen. It's usually a mother complex, like they have that hatred towards their mom. But in the end, like, the end never justifies the means as far as taking a life, and it's just not right. They just have that something wrong in their head that was never complete, and there really is no excuse for it. I mean, I spent like 2 weeks in a murder trial just recently, and you know, he's trying to make excuses. Well, we had a lot of bills, and I think she was cheating on me and all this other stuff, but you know, he took that time to be behind her for 3 minutes and then wiggle out from underneath her and then again on top of her for another minute. It was not a crime of passion. It was taking that control, and that's what a lot of it is trying to take that control back, and it's just scary and sad, really. I don't understand it, and I don't think we're meant to understand it, and that's where the intrigue comes in. Like, what makes this happen? It's just interesting to a certain point. But very sad that a lot of us are going that direction.
It is sad. And as we change topics here, we got to remember that this is all about the victims. It's not about the killers. And I think too much we are glorifying the popularity of these animals, and I think that's a proper term to use, is they are animals. And in any case like this, if you're one of the millions who are watching these videos on Netflix or YouTube or whatever video streaming channel you have, take a moment to remember the victims, because in the end it's about them, not this serial killer. Now, this next topic that we're going to get into, we may continue it after the break because we only have about 6 minutes. Zuger, I'm going to bring you in here. Outside of Bigfoot, which cryptid monster does it seem likely to exist on the planet at this time? Now, if I were to make my own choice, I'm going with Megalodon. I really do believe that there are some big sharks out in the ocean right now. And, you know, the ocean is so vast and so expansive and deep in areas that I really believe that there is maybe some smaller megalodons still out there, even though they were supposed to be extinct 2.3 million years ago. What's your thoughts? What's your choice on that?
Well, since you took the one that I was going to use, I'm actually going to go with my second, which I would put up there with the Megalodon, which is the Thunderbird. This is it's supposed to have like a 25 or 30-foot wingspan. It's been seen here in North America. It's an indigenous lore all across the continent. And sightings have even been reported as I'm going to say as early as like the 1800s when they started exploring Africa. And, you know, Africa's a very large continent if most people would take a look at a globe to confirm it. And we don't know a lot of the interior and what some of the animals that are there. And is it a possibility that if dinosaurs, you know, could, or some type of amphibious being or creature had survived from prehistoric times, crocodiles have, why wouldn't a massive reptilian flying being be possible?
Mm-hmm. So do you believe then, Chris, that there are still plenty of secrets on this planet for creatures of mythical legend and lore that still exist?
I honestly think that there's a lot that we don't necessarily know. Up until a couple centuries ago, you know, a lot of people wouldn't spend their lives anywhere farther than 5 miles from their house. So, what do we know? Even me, that I've been in my studio working for the last couple of days. My cat has been out, you know, bringing home mice and chipmunks, and various other woodland creatures. There's a lot out there that we don't necessarily have on our attention, and it's a very good chance that in some remote place that nobody ever visits, that there could be something that is quite large and quite mystic.
Tessa, we get back to you here for a second. Outside of Bigfoot, which cryptid creature do you think is the most likely to be living on this planet at this time?
Well, I think I could see Nessie being one, as far as, you know, the Earth used to be flooded, and when it drained out, perhaps they got caught in these water channels, and being that Nessie and these other creatures seen in other lakes given different names, but basically being the same creature, it's a possibility that they did get stuck in these holes of water. I mean, there's several dogmen even. There's been a lot of reports recently with that, and different people seeing them with their spears and their armor walking through desolate areas. And I don't know. Those seem like big possibilities. There's others that I'm thinking of, but I'm not sure if those are considered paranormal or cryptid.
What are they? Slip them.
Fairies or fae. And because we've had several cases with those, and then skinwalkers, because I've grown up in this area and have seen, such things alongside the road, not supposed to be there and looking not human, but something other than human. There's just so many possibilities, and we don't even know all the creatures that actually exist on Earth. We're finding new ones all the time in the sea and oceans and even in jungles. It's hard to figure out what is there that's real and what is there that would be considered cryptid.
Michael W. Hall, you're going to have a final say on this, as we got about 90 seconds before we got to go to break.
All right, I would vote for the Dogman and or the Mothman. Those kinds of things, the cryptids that seem to have some kind of hominid look to them as well, seem to be very popular as far as the reports go. So I'm going to actually go with the vote that there probably is something very similar to a Bigfoot that has evolved differently. And I believe the Mothman is a very good example of that. It was a theory, a lore, not even that long ago, but people still continue to cite those kinds of things all around the area.
And it's funny, if you look in the Washington Atlas, under S, for mammals that have been recorded there and that are under their protection, is Sasquatch.
Yes, exactly.
It's very interesting.
That certain counties in the Washington state, you cannot, it's illegal. They've actually got it on the books as a canon in the state law. You cannot kill a Sasquatch.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's fantastic. Fantastic. Everybody hold on. I want to give a quick shout out to all of our listeners tonight on Deep Talk Radio, coming in from Australia, Canada, Hungary, Ireland, the United Kingdom, and across the United States. Thank you so much for listening in. We have Michael W. Hall, the paranormal lawyer from the UFO I-Team, Chris George Zuger from the Den of Lore and Spaced Out Radio's Reality Paranormal, and Spaced Out Weekend host Tessa Nicole Thomas. Thank you so much. We will be back for hour number 3 on Spaced Out Radio's SOR Paranormal Roundtable right after this.
Are you tired of being blocked, shadow banned, or placed in jail for simply posting your thoughts on social media? Social Media Freedom can take care of that for you. Social Media Freedom is the newest and one of the best free new apps that allows you the freedom to post what you want when you want. It takes seconds to download from your app store. Come join the tribe at Social Media Freedom. It's time to set yourself free.
The first annual Caribou Paracon is happening September 28th to 30th in the 108 Mile Ranch, British Columbia. Brought to you by the Canadian Society of Questers and Spaced Out Radio. Come listen to our featured speaker, Grant Cameron, along with Elizabeth Anglin, Paisley Town, Mike Moran, Eric Cooper, and more. It's a 3-day supernatural adventure at the Spruce Hills Resort and Spa. Tickets for the weekend are $150 Canadian. The Caribou Paracon, celebrating everything paranormal.
A timepiece is a reflection of who you are, and what better way to show off the real you than with an Escape watch? Escape is a lifestyle brand accessorizing your days and nights. Choose to escape and create the life of discovery that you deserve. Dream, play, unite with your own personalized Escape watch. Head to escapewatches.com. There is no time like the present to enjoy your escape. Use promo code SMF2017 for your 20% discount today.
Looking for a place to advertise at a very reasonable cost? Look no further than Spaced Out Radio. SpacedOutRadio.com has an advertising tab that you can click to check out our daily, weekly, and monthly packages to play on the radio, or our website including social media. From commercial spots to banners, we have it all. Check out our competitive pricing today.
Find yourself constantly looking up in the sky, looking for answers? Have you had extraterrestrial contact? Are you an abductee? Looking for answers to your experiences? Hi there, I'm R. Keith Andrews, Spaced Out Radio's resident ET expert. Join me live the first Friday of every month where I take questions from the Spaced Out Radio chat room and help you understand those from the far-off world. It's 2 hours of knowledge every experiencer should listen to. Hope to see you there.
Are you intrigued by Paranormal Talk Radio? You'll love the new Paranormal Radio app from TalkStream Live. You'll find a great selection of talk shows covering UFOs, ghosts, strange phenomena, and much more. Download the Paranormal Radio app now and start listening to the very best in paranormal talk entertainment, including the network you're listening to right now, the Paranormal Radio app, free in Google Play and the iOS App Store.
The Call of the Wild is in Vancouver. The Moose Vancouver is one of the hottest bars and restaurants in the city. Open until 2 a.m. nightly, the Moose will rock you like a hurricane all night long. Great food with everything on the menu at $6.95 near the corner of Nelson and Granville. Get your horns up and come rock with us. The Moose Vancouver, the official rocking bar of Spaced Out Radio.
Are you an experiencer? Have you had run-ins with strange creatures you can't explain? ETs, Dogman, Bigfoot, werewolves? They're enough to scare the daylights out of anyone. Hi there, I'm Butch Witkowski from your 4-Cop. And on the last Monday of every month, you can listen to me and the host, Dave Scott, talk about the weird and the strange being reported on Spaced Out Radio. I'm going to bring my investigations and sources, you bring your experiences, and we'll figure out the rest together. Strange Days on Spaced Out Radio. Come tune us in at spacedoutradio.com.
You hear footsteps in the empty room above you. A rocking chair begins rocking by itself. Don't be afraid of the things that go bump in the night. Reach for Spirit Storybox, the iPhone app the Huffington Post UK called the only ghost hunting app you will ever need. Spirit Storybox. The spirits are telling their stories. Are you listening?
You know, it's hard being the bad man of ufology, but that's just the way that I like it. This is Chris George Zuger, and I'll be hanging out with Dave Scott and SOR scientist Chris Cogswell for Reality Paranormal, the second Wednesday of every month. And our job is to break it down and come to conclusions as to what is really going on in the supernatural world. I'd love for you to join us and bring your questions for us to investigate right here on Spaced Out Radio.
Visit purpleplates.com today. For over 40 years, the Purple Energy Plates have been delivering amazing results for their many customers. Inspired by the great genius Nikola Tesla, the harmony, healing, and energetic effects of the plates have proven over and over to be beneficial and often miraculous to thousands of customers. Check their site for daily specials and choose from their many energy products. You won't be sorry. Visit them today at purpleplates.com.
When it comes to the news, we look for the stories that the mainstream won't cover. Welcome to Spaced Out Radio's The Encounter. This is News Director Everett Thiemer. The Encounter is about the weird and strange stories that occur daily, and we scour the world looking to bring them to you. You can hear me with Dave Scott every Monday through Friday in our Encounter news segment. Read us online at spacedoutradio.com or check us out and give our Facebook page a like at SOR The Encounter. So come give The Encounter a read.
From the mile-high state of Colorado, sharing our signal around the world, I invite you to Spaced Out Sundays. Hi, I'm Tessa Nicole Thomas, and I'm closing out the week by taking you on a paranormal journey to the world of the weird. Ghosts, aliens, psychic phenomena, I will hit it all in your questions too. So let us highlight the paranormal for you. So come join me for Spaced Out Sundays starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, 12 a.m. Eastern, only at spacedoutradio.com.
The views and opinions expressed by tonight's guest and topic of discussion do not necessarily represent the official policy or position of Spaced Out Radio, Spaced Out Weekend, Spaced Out Radio Limited, its hosts, syndicated carriers, or anyone associated with this broadcast. You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with Dave Scott. Follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and hashtag Spaced Out Radio, and on Facebook, Spaced Out Radio Show. Now, back to the program.
Welcome back to the third and final hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. I am your host, Dave Scott. Thank you so much for being with us. Tomorrow night on the show, it's the weekend. While I am out finding my Zen and my Chi, Tessa Nicole Thomas is back for Spaced Out Weekend. We get going at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern at spacedoutradio.com. I will be back on the holiday Monday, so enjoy your long weekend, everybody. My guest on Monday will be Tim Schwartz. We are going to be talking time travel. It's going to be a lot of fun. We welcome back everyone listening in on the SOR Radio Network and Deep Talk Radio. And don't forget, you can check out our archives for free on our YouTube channel. Go to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do me a favor, hit that subscribe button. Mike McNeil set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. And boy, it's a doozy tonight. It is a real doozy tonight. It is, let me find it here. Synecdoche. Synecdoche is your password. Make sure you use it wisely, Space Travelers, as Bill sets the password and Michael sets the password each and every night right here on the mighty SOR. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you. You can rock out to Bumblefoot, shop at our store, read up on the encounter online, and so much more. Don't forget, you can also right now go to questers.ca. That's questers.ca. Click on the fall conference. Get your tickets right now for the first annual Caribou Paracon, presented by Spaced Out Radio and Canadian Society of Questers. We get going September 28th through 30th. I'd love to see as many Spaced Out Radio listeners coming to central British Columbia for that. We're doing it at the Spruce Hill Resort and Spa. Go to sprucehillresort.com to get your hotel rooms. It is filling up fast, so make sure you get your tickets today. It's the final hour of the final show of August here on Spaced Out Radio. We're doing the SOR Paranormal Roundtable with Chris George Zuger from the Den of Lore and Spaced Out Radio's Reality Paranormal. From the weekend show, we have Tessa Nicole Thomas, and of course, from the UFO I team, Michael W. Hall. Thank you, everyone, for joining us, and we're having a lot of fun. Now, right before the break, we asked a question about cryptids. Which cryptid do you think is most likely to still be alive or roaming around the lands of this planet or swimming in the waters outside of Bigfoot? Now, one of the interesting ones is Megalodon, and the reason why I believe Megalodon is still potentially out there, or maybe a hybrid of it, but some big sharks. And for some reason, this one kind of goes a little under the radar. But our Australian listeners will remember this. A few years ago, there was about a 15-foot great white shark that was taken from the, you know how Australia has those safety nets out there to keep sharks out so beachgoers don't get attacked. Well, there was a 15-foot great white caught in one of those, and there was literally a bite in that shark around the neck that almost went from spine to spine, from one side of the spine to the other, and it was one singular bite. And they figured that would have to have been a 35 to 40-foot shark that would have had a mouth that big to get around that size of a 15-foot great white. To me, that is, Chris, a big tall tale sign that there is some big fish swimming around the ocean.
Well, did they have a picture of this? I have to ask.
There was actually a video of it. And be damned if I can find it now. Maybe it's all Mandela effect. I don't know. Where's Ozzy Rob when you need him?
Well, this is one of the big things about found creature stories. I'll use an example. My brother-in-law and I, our families rent a cottage about an hour outside of town, and unless I actually see him catch a fish, I always assume that he's going to be saying the fish is actually bigger that he caught than it actually is, because I say the exact same thing. There is this, I think it's a bass that lives 15 feet in the reeds off the dock, and wouldn't you know it, it started out as like half a foot long, and by the end of the summer last year, it was 2.5 feet, and it was just massive. Every single time we almost caught this thing, it was like, man, the beast almost got us. So tall tales happen. Video and even video and photographic evidence can be faked. Is it possible? I would say probably is more likely that it was attacked by by a giant squid. And if there was an actual bite, was it a bite or was it lacerations from the tentacles? Because if anybody knows that squid do not have suction cups, well, they do, but there are also teeth on them. They cut. So that is also another possibility. But the idea of a giant squid, something 50 feet long in the body with tentacles that stretch on for dozens of feet, that's also a possibility as well. Have they ever been seen? There have been tales about them for a long time, but every so often one washes up on shore. And I'd say that may be more likely.
Outside of, let's say, Megalodon, Michael, on the West Coast, there is believed to be a sea monster that patrols from the southern tip of Alaska down the BC, Washington, Oregon coast, almost to the tip of California, called the Cadborosaurus. And I'm wondering, with these sea monsters, being that the ocean is so vast, do you think that there are some mythical sea monsters still in the ocean that we're just not seeing? Because a lot of people are having these views and we're just not sure about what's happening.
Yes. Yeah, I definitely believe that there are fish and, things in the ocean that we have never even come across or discovered scientifically yet. Of course, the major story about that would have been the coelacanth that for thousands and maybe even millions of years was never discovered until just recently. And now we realize there's this prehistoric large fish that exists in the very deep parts of the ocean. Of course, the ocean, as we all know, is about 5 miles deep in some places, and it covers 75% of the entire planet. So we just don't know what is down there. As a matter of fact, the interesting kind of trend has been towards the idea of people, mermaids, mermen, the idea that this theme of the movie The Shape of Water was that there were, it's almost like the creature from the Black Lagoon, but actually, from the ocean and the depths of the ocean. So it's very possible that people are seeing things out there that actually exist, but are very elusive and maybe rarely come to the surface.
Tessa, I want to throw one at you here, because in South America, where there is a lot of jungle, and same as in Africa, there's a lot of native people in that area and a lot of folklore that there are still dinosaurs, certain types of plesiosaurs still roaming around. Do you think those are in still existence, or do you think we are getting a little bit out of hand here?
I believe it exists. We actually have people in the Four Corners area that have reported little tiny T-Rex. And, like I've said before, so much of the world has been unexplored, and we're just recently finding old ruins and such that we'd never seen before because of these space photos that are being taken. But I think it is possible that they are out there, and there have been sightings, and, there are pictures. But then again, you go back to all of these apps where you can edit these pictures and add whatever you want in. So it's hard to know for sure unless you see it yourself, but I believe it's possible.
There's also a lot of reports in that Texas Four Corners area, Tessa, about pterodactyls going into Mexico as well.
Yeah, I believe they call them thunderbirds. And there have been sightings, and you can find them in glyphs and such that are left behind in especially on pottery, and it could just be, regular size, birds, but, due to all of their stories and lore, it seems to be that they were larger than life.
Mm-hmm. Zoogs, you get the final word on this one.
The existence of these things is possible. We know more about outer space than we do about our own oceans. Until we can actually map and catalog every single swimming creature that is under the waves, or explore every single corner of places like the Marianas Trench, man, who knows what's down there? I'm, for one, would love to find out.
Mm-hmm. Me too. Otherwise, just keep your eyes open. You never know what's going to happen. We're going to move on here on the SOR Paranormal Roundtable tonight because we're going to get into a little bit of a funny story. Gail Shirk, who writes for us on The Encounter, wrote this story up about a paranormal investigator back in June named Christian DeVoe. He got so panicked on a ghost hunt that he actually shot at a ghost with a gun. Now, police were called, and I'm sure this guy had a pretty stern talking to in regards to this. But Tessa, you being the paranormal investigator here, what the hell is someone packing a gun to a ghost hunt for?
That was my first thought. Unless you're in the ghetto, I was just watching a video on YouTube last night where this guy was exploring abandoned houses, and he goes upstairs and he finds this bag with food and this tub with a bunch of different bags of crack in it. And then all of a sudden he hears these guys coming in, and they came up the stairs, got whatever they needed, and went back down the stairs, probably making a deal. But had they found him, he could have lost his life. But that's one thing that we don't pack is a gun. So that's the only reason I could see taking one. I don't know. Not on the list of things to take.
No, it's ridiculous, though. I mean, I can understand it if you're somebody who's going to explore abandoned houses, okay? I mean, because you're without a permit or without getting permission, you're putting yourself in danger, whether that's a situation like this or whether you are putting yourself in some sort of hazard because the place is that run down where a floor or a roof may collapse. But I mean, this story, all right, apparently is just, ridiculous that this guy said he fired just over the intruder's head. The problem with that story was the bullets were only 2 feet off the ground, which made the person very short. As he was being questioned, DeVoe finally informed the officers he was a paranormal investigator and he may have been shooting at a ghost, which incidentally also made the ghost very short. I mean, Michael, I bring you in here for a second. I mean, is this just a little bit too much paranoia going on here? I mean, hey, people have been scared by ghosts before, but I mean, do we really see a ghost, putting up their hands and saying, "Don't shoot"?
Right. The whole idea of bringing weapons to investigations like this, whether they're ghost investigations, Bigfoot investigations, I believe probably in most cases you bring a weapon to these kinds of strange things to help protect you from other people, and probably the area that you're at would prompt something like that, and you definitely would not premeditate using a weapon on a ghost or a Bigfoot. Most stories I've heard of Bigfoot being shot at only make them even worse or mad. So, but the ghost thing is an interesting idea in the fact that some reports have said, of course, Tessa knows this, that these ghosts almost seem real. Some of them are ethereal. Some of them are not so opaque, but some are. Some people have actually reported that these things look just like anybody else in the situation that they saw them in. Potentially, of course, this case that we're citing today seems really outlandish, and I think probably the guy was just probably trying to cover his base. But it's possible that someone could shoot at a ghost thinking that it was a real person. I actually have an amazing story, ghost story, a hitchhiking ghost story that I'd like to relate if we've got enough time to do that.
Yeah, go for it. Go for it. We'd love to hear it.
Because a friend of mine, this is a personal friend of mine, not someone that I heard the story about, but someone that I respected as a serious-minded person. It was a woman that I knew. She said she was driving along a country highway, late at night. It was raining cats and dogs, and she runs across the traditional hitchhiker on the side of the road in a trench coat and a hat, and she says to herself, there's no way I am going to stop and pick up a hitchhiker in this isolated area that she was driving in late at night. So she continues on, is very reticent as she even drives by this person. She says it looked just exactly like a man dressed in a trench coat, face, head, hat, the whole thing. And as she went by and got further down the road, she felt a little bit more at ease getting out of that area. But suddenly she turns to her passenger side. She was driving the car, and she notices the exact man is sitting next to her in the car seat, not saying a word, looking straight ahead. And she just freaks out, doesn't know what to do, of course. I would imagine that if she had a weapon at that point, she might have used it, because she says this was a stone-cold, real-looking person. The ghost, at one point, finally turns his head towards her, and he tells her, "Don't be afraid." He says, "It's been so long since I've been able to sit next to a beautiful woman." That was all he said.
Wow.
And, of course, she just was totally beside herself, not knowing what to do, whether to slam on the brakes, whether to just peel out at 100 miles an hour, try to find the nearest community. But eventually, as she's driving down the road, she notices, as she looks out of her peripheral vision, this man in the coat, in the hat, with a real face, and seemed to have a smell of Old Spice or some kind of aftershave. He just dissolved right before her eyes. Now, this is a person that told me the story that I respect, and totally believe that she wouldn't be just telling me a story to tell me a story.
No kidding.
So I loved those kinds of hitchhiker ghost stories.
Well, getting back to the original story, and thank you so much for sharing that, Mike. That's an eerie story. But getting back to the story, this gentleman was allegedly charged with illegal discharge of a firearm, making false statements to police, second-degree reckless endangerment, misusing an emergency call, and disorderly conduct. So this guy is definitely on his way to court, and, I think the key is here, Chris, do not take a gun to a ghost hunt.
Well, what would you do if you actually met the ghost? It's like those old cartoons and with Spider-Man in it. After you're done with the bullets, you just throw the gun at him. Like, come on.
I don't know. I really don't know. We're going to move on here, gentlemen, and Tessa.
Well, Dave, yeah. I have one more ghost thing that I think would be fascinating for everyone to know about, because there is the first and only, as far as I know, a murder case that was in a court of law in the Pennsylvania District Court at the turn of the century that actually used the testimony from a ghost to convict a murderer. And it's a fascinating case that if you ever look it up, it's just amazing, where the case is called Mayo. You could actually Google Mayo ghost case, and you would be able to find this. That was the the defendant it was the defendant, the perpetrator on this case, was convicted of killing his younger daughter or niece, I believe, and the daughter, the deceased daughter, supposedly, in the case, it's in the court record, comes and tells her mother, who killed her and how it was done. And the mother got on the witness stand, and the both attorneys cross-examined and examined her to try to get the evidence out. And the mother says that her daughter came to her as a ghost and told her exactly how it happened, and this is where the murder weapon was. This is how she died. And, of course, the coroner confirmed that's exactly how she died, and they actually found the murder weapon where the ghost, through her mother, told her where there was. So that is an actual case, and the first that I know of where a ghost actually was used. The testimony of a ghost was used in a court of law.
That's eerie. That's completely
And Robert
eerie.
was saying in the chat room that that ghost actually appeared in his own house, and he thought it was an actual person. But even if it were, would you really shoot at a kid? But I guess it was harassing him or something. I don't know. But it was in his own house, not on an actual ghost hunt.
Oh, weird. All right. Moving on here. A little bit of a funny story out of Spokane, Washington, where the city of 550,000 was completely impacted by forest fire smoke coming down from British Columbia. And Spokane is probably an hour and a half drive south from the British Columbia-Washington border. So this gentleman came up with this slick idea that if everybody bought 5 high-powered portable fans and stuck them on their roof and aimed the fans to British Columbia, that they could move the smoke back north. Well, the problem is, some of that smoke that was impacting Spokane was coming from California as well. So here they are blaming us Canadians for the forest fire smoke, which is, debatable, considering that you can't tell which smoke is from BC or which is from California. The science behind this, Zoogs, is a little ridiculous. Don't you think?
I'm trying to hold my tongue on this one. Again, people are going to believe what they want to believe, even if it's completely ridiculous or has no basis in reality. If they actually suggested this, I'm going to guess that it may have been a joke, and if they actually believed it, then my dear goodness, our countries need to invest in better public education again, because you think people like that don't exist, and then you have individuals who believe that the Earth is actually flat, and you start to question whether our species would be better off if a giant meteor crashed into the planet and set us back to zero, because obviously having the high technology we have, it's being wasted.
Yes. Michael W. Hall, you're in Washington State. Obviously, you heard this story coming out. I mean, sending the smoke back by every citizen buying 5 portable fans to put on their rooftops. Is this about as ridiculous as it gets?
It does sound rather ingenious. If someone thinks that this would actually work, it's almost like a royal rife, kind of thing where you would change the weather by shooting, kind of argon up into the atmosphere. But the idea that you could actually move smoke out of your area and put it towards another area brings up the idea to me that at the very least, this could be a civil tort. This would be something that would be actionable in a civil court of law. For instance, your neighbors, throwing garbage and or leaves on your next door, over the next door fence to yourself. That, those are typical disputes that you would have in a civil court. And it might even arise to the level of a criminal assault, when you are actually putting someone in fear of their own lives by you don't even have to touch someone to actually have assault in the fourth degree. So that's just the legal aspect of this whole thing. You've got to really think things through. If you think you're going to get rid of a problem in your area, what are you going to do about sending the problem somewhere else?
Oh, it is ridiculous indeed. Tessa, you're in the Mile High area of Colorado. Are you going to point fans down towards California to move that smoke away, or what?
No, I think it's a waste of time and energy. Perhaps they're thinking of it like a placebo for people. But yeah, my common sense just can't wrap my mind around this. It does not make sense to me, and I don't see changing jet streams with fans. Perhaps if you could erect a mountain, to block these jet streams and, divert it somewhere else, but it's just not possible. But like I said, it could be a placebo.
Save money, send water.
Yeah.
Do a rain dance. We had a couple days of very hard rain here, and poof, forest fire smoke is gone. Completely gone. It's so nice to actually breathe clear air. Oh, you wouldn't believe. All of a sudden your throat's no longer dry anymore, and you're not feeling gross and dirty, and that smell of campfire absolutely everywhere. We're going to move on to another topic here. It's summertime, or near the end of summertime here, and paranormal tourism is at an all-time high with everything. And every day on my Facebook, I don't know about yours, if you're involved in the paranormal field, or a bunch of ghost hunters, you see everybody going to all of these places, and it's the same places every time. It's Waverly Hills, some sort of sanitarium, Allegheny, or Gettysburg, or Alcatraz, wherever it may be. It's the same investigations every single year. And yes, paranormal tourism brings in a lot of money for people, and people have a lot of fun doing it, and I don't have a problem with that. But as paranormal investigators, Tessa, where should we be looking to tell some really good ghost stories? Where should ghost hunters be seeking?
Well, old historic buildings are nice, and possibly land where battles and such have happened, or you can find an old base of a house where there's no longer a structure, but you can see where the structure was. I mean, there's ghosts in so many places that do actually need help, and I'm sure if people are visiting the same place all the time, hopefully they find help and they're not just people dinking around with stuff. But in people's personal homes, we've been getting a lot of those lately, and I don't know if it is like people are saying the veil is thinning, or if people are just more aware of it. But personal homes are pretty interesting as well. There's so many variations out there, and those to me are good places.
Yeah, but I got to be honest with you, Tess. I wouldn't trust 80% of the paranormal investigators out there in my house.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, let's call a spade a spade. You don't know what the hell they're investigating, or if they're just there to make things worse. You really don't know. Right? You really don't know. Michael, go ahead, Tess.
Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say with National Ghost Hunting Day, we're going up to the Grand Imperial in Silverton, Colorado, and one of his big worries was that he had the place blessed, and shaman and all kinds of things come in there, and everything is really quiet, and he's worried about things being kicked back up, and are we going to be summoning and all this other stuff. But that's a big fear too, because people do go in there and rile things up and then just leave it for somebody else to come in and pick up the pieces. But it's really important to know your team and know their credentials and their past, experiences and successes.
Michael W. Hall, I want to get your take on that. Where do you think, are we missing the boat here on what investigation is because of the popularity of what's going on? Because I've driven through the northern part of Washington where there's some pretty remote little towns that are just absolutely gorgeous. And you go back in time about 100, 125 years, and everything is exactly the same. Same here in British Columbia. And I think every state or province has those areas where it's just like you look at a building and you're like, oh, yeah, that's haunted. That's completely haunted. Yet there's so much territory that has not been investigated. Are we really missing the boat as paranormal investigators here and not going to some of these out-of-the-way areas because we want that popularity tag or that participation ribbon from one of the popular places?
Yeah, I think that there is a vast field out there of potential investigation in the actual First Nation communities that no longer exist well before us Europeans even got here on this continent. So I would think that there are, great places, potential, places that everyone goes to visit. But I think obviously there are some really unique places. For instance, there's a member of our UFO I-team, and we are interested in most all paranormal. And one of our members is very interested in the ghost phenomena. And she says that in Santa Monica, California, where she lives, or used to live, right on the beach, there was an entire Indian burial ground that was uncovered in a construction project where these brand new condos were being made. And they had to, of course, stop the project. They had to bring in the First Nations in that area and relocate the remains that were found in this area. And it just showed her off the top that there were actual entities and potentially spirits in the area long before the Europeans even showed up. And she actually did kind of a, not a seance, but did a kind of a meditation and believes she was able to contact some of these deceased First Nation dwellers here at the the western coast of the United States. So that's another whole area as far as historic ghosts go.
Chris George Zuger, are we missing the boat on paranormal for popularity?
Oh, totally. I started in the radio business almost 2.5 years ago, and I started with a belief that the deep state was real, that they were covering up UFOs, and then I got to know the behind the scenes of some of the larger players. And then I realized that it's not much different a lot of the time than pro wrestling was back in the 70s. And I honestly think that we need to not just think critically about the evidence, but the individuals that are presenting the evidence. Because if we continue to believe every single great story that's told to us without thinking, is this potentially true? How could this not be true? What is being presented as far as proof that this actually happened? We're just going to continue to believe that behind every single rock is a gray alien. Underneath every single something going wrong is some government agency covering things up. Well, it's a possibility. It's the government for goodness sake, and that we are truly living in the age of disclosure. When in reality, it's it's just the age of infotainment. We need to get back to the scientific method of actually looking at these phenomena and cataloging them and trying to definitively prove or disprove that not only do they exist, but what the properties actually are and whether there's something that's natural or extra-dimensional about the phenomena. And we need to stop thinking out of our butts, plain and simple.
Yeah, and you know what? Look, I think it's exciting. I mean, would I want to go investigate Gettysburg? Absolutely, I would. I totally would. I'd love to do Alcatraz. But on the flip side, do we have to keep, going to these places when there are so many exciting areas and spirits that maybe have never been talked to before that may have a more qualified message? I mean, at some point, if you take a look at it from the spiritual side, these ghosts got to be getting pissed off. It's probably like, leave me alone already. Leave me alone. You know what I'm saying? It just gets a little ridiculous where there might be, an old barn in the middle of nowhere of a hay field in the middle of Wisconsin that nobody has ever checked out. And then you find out that it was maybe some sort of there was some sort of battle that happened around there. That's what's exciting to me. That's what I want to hear. Go to the places that nobody is going. That's what part of the adventure is supposed to be about, isn't it, Michael?
Yeah, indeed. That's exactly what would be compelling to me. Taking my, EMF meters, my, ghost boxes, whatever kind of, investigative items you want to take with you, and go to places that would be out of the way, would be untrod by most of the, paranormal investigators, would be very compelling. Even in the forests of the Pacific Northwest, where most people don't go. If you're not hunting for Bigfoot or cryptids of any kind, having those kinds of gear with you would be very fascinating. Just to sit down by a campfire potentially and just relax and see what might come your way would be very fascinating to me.
Mm-hmm. What about all these rangers' cabins? Because a long time ago in the Canada and the United States, they'd have these rangers' cabins set up where people would sit in there and they would watch for forest fires, or they would watch for campers that were getting out of hand, or anything that was out of the ordinary. And we don't have them. They're all abandoned. I mean, imagine the ghosts there. You don't hear of many people going up to these abandoned rangers' cabins, going in there to see if there's any ghosts. And that's a perfect opportunity.
Well, you're right. And as a matter of fact, I know in the state of Washington down here, you can actually, almost like a B&B, you can stay overnight at the forest lookout stations on tops of mountains in certain areas, where you can pay a very small minimal fee, because it takes a while even to try to get up there, and you have to haul in all of your own food and water. But the views and the vistas from those areas are 360 degrees. Many UFO hunters like to go there and skywatch as well. But the idea being that if a ghost was to go to a place to get away from things, maybe wanted some peace and quiet, like you were mentioning, that might be a great place to go just to hang out, for sure.
We're going to move on in topics here. Thank you so much for that. And Chris, we're going to start with you on this one. All right. Devil's Tower. Everybody knows it from Close Encounters of the Third Kind. Now, around here, Everett and I got in a little bit of a debate. He believes it's a rock formation that was probably formed volcanically. I'm saying it's a giant tree stump. I'm on Team Stump here. Are you laughing?
Yeah, a little bit.
Come on. Wouldn't you totally, I know for a fact that you would totally buy a Spaced Out Radio t-shirt that said Team Stump on it.
Oh, I'd make the t-shirt.
Come on. Are you on Team Stump, or are you going with this reality stuff that Everett's trying to pull?
Well, I've been on the reality kick since I went on vacation. But sure, I'll join up with Team Stumpy. Why not?
So what do you think? Do you think that there's a possibility that tree would be about 10 miles tall?
This is, not Secrets of Mana, which is one of the greatest RPGs ever made, Super Nintendo. All right. Tree stump? No. There's no giant tree that grew somewhere in the Midwest. It is either volcanic and had a lot of erosion over several millennia of outflow from goodness knows what ice dam during the last ice age and millions of years before that. It's a rock, plain and simple.
The chat room's not agreeing with you. We got Renee, Joe, Adnome. They're all on Team Stump right now. Oh, and
well,
Mooney
I'm
too.
I'm on Team Stump, yes, but I just think it's a rock.
Oh, Tessa, Team Stump?
Well,
tree
yeah.
or volcanic rock formation?
I'm definitely on Team Stump. We have the petrified forest out here where you can go and buy little pieces of petrified wood. And you see these trees out in California that are just huge. Like, you can drive through them and they're monstrous. Who's to say that there wasn't a giant tree out here that was petrified along the same range as the petrified forest? When I look at it, I totally see a tree stump.
So did the aliens in Close Encounters of the Third Kind. Nighthawk in Revolution Radio, he's like, yeah, it's tree stump. It's all about Team Stump right there. It's all about Team Stump. I think Mr. Skeptic on hashtag Spaced Out Radio on Twitter, I think he's a Team Stump guy as well. I don't know. Michael W. Hall, are you on Team Stump, or are you going in the other direction?
I'm leaning towards the infamous Team Stump on this one. Believe me, I live in the state of Washington. We have, of course, the whole eastern side of the state is filled with magma, from our volcanic regions on the Cascade Mountain Range. But when you actually, there is a spot out in eastern Washington, near Vantage, Washington, and there's just where it's a portion where the actual Columbia River goes through there, and you cross the Columbia on this massive bridge. But it's a place called the Ginkgo Petrified Forest. I don't know if you've ever heard of the idea that some of these trees have turned into stone, over the millennia, and they are actual large tree stumps. There are, branches, and of course the ginkgo leaf has been found in rocks, that have solidified. So I'm looking at the Devil's Tower, and when you look at that massive thing and realize that one of the theories is that the entire landscape was as high as the top of the Devil's Tower itself. And then, of course, erosion happened and brought the thing up into the air just because the actual land around it eroded away. And I'm thinking to myself, that is a whole heck of a lot of land to be eroded away if you look how that tower sticks up so high and in the middle of nowhere. It would have to clear out the entire hundreds of miles of land just to be surviving there. And why would just that survive? Even if some people believe it is some kind of a vent from a volcanic magma that comes up from the ground and solidified, where are the other vents in that area? There are none. That's the only one. So it's kind of fascinating the way that thing is very prominent in the area.
I agree, and I still think we're going to have to get some Team Stump Spaced Out Radio t-shirts. Somebody had a comment? Anybody? No? Going once?
Team Stump!
There we go. All right, final topic for tonight, everyone, as we only got about 10 minutes left in the show before we got to start closing things out. We had Barry Strom on last night, talking about spirit boards and his communication. Now, whether or not you believe that you are talking to spirits, I mean, that's one argument that we need to define. But on Halloween night, we'll have Karen Dahlman come on to do a live Ouija board session for the third year in a row, which I'm all excited about. And one of the things that I'm really kind of scratching my head on here is we have a lot of people out there, okay, who literally say, oh, stay away from the Ouija boards. Stay away. They're bad. They're evil. They're going to cause very bad things to happen. And yet, they're all for pendulums. They're all for ghost hunting equipment. They all get their psychic readings, dowsing, and, we'll throw a little, salt on the windows to keep the spirits out, Palo Santo wood, sage, whatever it may be. Does the Ouija board, in your mind, Tessa, get a bad rap?
Oh, well, I'm one of those that are on the side of not using them. Like, I've used it and I haven't had bad experiences, but I know people who have. But on the other hand, like my mentor and her daughter, they used it like a cell phone. She ended up dying from cancer, but that doesn't mean it's related. I don't know. I know that people are saying using a Ouija board is the same as dowsing rods or a pendulum, like you were saying, or any other piece of ghost hunting equipment. But I think, it's out there and circulated to people 8 years and older, and who really, are they ID'd? Are you 8 years or older? I mean, kids of all ages are using this thing, and a lot of times they don't end the session, and who's to say they're not opening a portal or some sort of vortex where different dark matter or entities are coming through. I just don't trust it, just being the way that they do manufacture it and advertise it to younger kids, and just introduce it as a parlor game when in reality it's not. I've just seen too many instances of it not working out very well. But I might just be paranoid, but at the same time I'm going to go with my gut and not use those, and I'm not going to tell other people to use them. But if you do, make sure you say goodbye and close out the session and do what you're supposed to do with it. I don't know. It's just scary, and there's too many things that can come through and just cause so much damage.
Zuger, your thoughts?
When I was a young child and I didn't have a better understanding of how the world worked, and I was a very superstitious person, I would go with it. And I respect anybody's wanting to use them or believing that they're real. People can believe whatever they want, and that's the beautiful part about a free and just society. I personally don't hold any stock in it. It's superstition to me. Again, I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that I'd be right, at least in saying that if I used one, I wouldn't have anything bad happen to me.
I don't think so either, and I'd use one. I don't have one. I don't own one. I'm not scared of them. I think if used properly, that, they could be just as good a tool as anything else when it comes to communicating with the paranormal. Michael, do you think that the Ouija board gets a bad rap?
It traditionally has been that iconic thing that have been given a bad rap for many, many years. You always wonder why, because, of course, there are many different types of spirit boards, not in the shape exactly of the patented Ouija board. And people use those kinds of things to divine many kinds of subjects, and they use many kind of divination processes to get the same information as well. Mm-hmm. So you wonder why the Ouija board has been so demonized, and whether there is some kind of agenda behind that to actually keep people more in the dark. Because obviously if it's very useful, you definitely would not want to have the general public to have something like that. But I would tend to put that in the same category as having a handgun around. You definitely don't want to have a handgun in an area where people are not trained to use it and use it correctly. And, you would definitely not to have any paranormal object that people are not able to use correctly, like Tessa was mentioning, because young children really don't know how to use one and or how to actually not use one and close it up, like you mentioned. If it's a portal, you need to know what you're doing with it.
No, I fully agree with that. But I mean, let's face it, it is made by Parker Brothers. And there are now a bunch of other types of spirit boards out there that you can get. I guess the question that I have in regards to this is just the fact that we, at so many times, hear the Ouija board get blamed for absolutely everything. And yet there is this hyperbole out there that, oh, pendulums are safe, or ghost hunting gear is safe. Ghost boxes, what we do with Bill Hauser. What's the difference? To me, and maybe I'm looking at this too simplistically, Chris, there is no difference in what kind of gear you are using. If you're communicating with the dead or spirits on the other side, you're pretty much, throwing a quarter in the air and hoping that it hits the ground. You know what I'm saying? Where you know it's going to hit the ground, but you don't know what effect it's going to have. It may kill an ant. It may, break a leaf, whatever.
Well, and that's going under the assumption that it actually works.
Exactly.
People are going to say that it's like, oh, it works, and it's this device. A company that makes board games that's sold in Walmart markets this because there's a very good chance that it's just a toy. And again, I'm not trying to poo-poo on anybody here, but if you want to believe in fairies and leprechauns and the types of supernatural phenomena in that way that was very big when seances were a thing back, when electricity just started coming around, and you also have an iPhone that can talk to somebody thousands of miles away, or I can have a full-on conversation with people on different parts of the continent at the same time while the people at home are listening, then again, it goes back to the whole idea of we need to get back to thinking critically again, and at least trying to fully understand scientifically whether there's a phenomena or not. If there's no phenomena, casting it aside. Because if we are holding on to superstition, then we are no better than our ancestors whom pushed around carts or had them led by horses and wrote letters by candlelight. And we live in the 21st century. We've gone to the moon. Yes, we have actually gone to the moon, people. I'd like to think that we as individuals, as a species, have gone beyond stories that were meant to scare our 5-year-old selves. And if there is a phenomenon, then let's make sure that we explore every single aspect of it. But superstition, I'm casting that aside.
Well, I don't go by superstition and what other people tell me. I go by my own experience. And when I was in the military, I got on this thing. I only tried it one night, but I tried it twice in one night. And first time I got on there, I wanted to talk to my mom, and it said no. So I was like, F you, I'm going to go take a shower. Well, I come back, and all the girls from my platoon are gone, and this Ouija board is still on my rack. So I get on there, and it just starts going off like by itself. It was a very awesome and interesting experience, and I learned so much. But at the same time, my platoon mates came back. They're yelling at me, yelling my name. I'm not hearing anything, and that's the part that scares me. Like, why did that block happen? The cool part, I did get to talk to my mom. The weird part, why was there a block where I couldn't hear people yelling in my ear? I have very sensitive ears. And so that's the part that scares me. And they do have those rules. And like you guys were saying before, with any equipment, you just need to be educated on it and know how to use it and close it out and to protect yourself. And, all tools are somewhat the same when dealing with that side. And it may be superstition to some people, but through experience, I know certain things have happened, and it's not just delirium or my imagination. But just always be careful, protect yourself, and do what you're supposed to do. Follow those steps, and don't just blah through it and end up getting some sort of attachment or whatnot.
See, to me, I don't see, Michael, the difference between a Ouija board, reading tea leaves, tarot cards, dowsing, pendulums, whatever it is. I just do not see the difference in any of these. I think they're all communication devices. I think they all work for certain people, and for certain people, they do not. So therefore, I'm just kind of curious, why the Ouija board gets such a bum rap. Is it because of the legends, or do we actually have something that we should be concerned about?
Yes, matter of fact, I'm with you there. In general, the idea being that there are tools out there to go through the veils and try to find the truth on the other side. And I often wonder what Edgar Cayce, the sleeping prophet, had to say, if he did, about Ouija boards. Obviously, they were around at the time he was doing his prophecies. And, of course, as a real conservative Christian man, he was actually giving information from the other side of the veil to his clients and people who wanted to have readings. And that's just a strange way that a person in his belief system would act. So I'm wondering what his take on the Ouija board would have been.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's time to start wrapping things up here, peeps. Thank you so much for being on the show tonight for the final night of August. The SOR Paranormal Roundtable. Chris George Zuger from the Den of Lore. Thanks, buddy.
Well, thank you very much for having me.
Not a problem, Tessa. Thank you. And you have a great couple of shows this weekend.
Awesome, yeah. Tomorrow we got Colorado Coalition of Paranormal Investigators and Eastern Coalition of Paranormal Investigators. And then Sunday we finally got a psychic back in. Woohoo! So
nice.
We have Psychic Eggshell coming in to do readings and an interview. It's going to be awesome.
Excellent. Michael W. Hall, thank you so much for coming on in.
Oh, it was my pleasure, Dave and Tessa and Chris. It was just a great show. Thank you for all of your input tonight.
We only got about 28 seconds to wrap this up. We thank Mr. Ron Bumblefoot THAL as well for rocking us in and out of every single show. We thank all of you for participating. And I will be back in SOR headquarters on Monday the 3rd. Tim Schwartz is coming in. We're talking time travel. You guys all have a wonderful weekend because together, my friends, we own the night. Have a good one and be safe. Good night.